The count to Ernie Banks is 3-1 with Leo DeRocher, the Cub manager, studying the situation. On drive, left field, going, going!
Get out of here! Wave it goodbye to Jesus with his third home run of the year.
Before the game, and he saw Castro's name in the lineup. The first thing he said was, "Can he hit a breaking ball?" I said, "We'll find out tonight."
We'll find out. Well, plus at this level, you'll see breaking balls in any count, not just when the pitcher's ahead.
A fly ball to right. Bruce going back. Starlin Castro! A 3-run homer. Welcome to the big leagues.
Larry Bowa, a leaping catch of a line drive, and the Cubs win it 2-1. Holy cow! Did I just say the best thing that can happen to us? Watch it once more. The runners are going. Here's Hernandez. Bang! Headed for center field. Larry Bowa, leaping catch, steps on second. Cubs win. Had them all the way. No doubt about it.
The quick pitch. And Baez sends it deep to left. Pagan is there at the wall and it's in the basket.
There he goes. High fly ball. It's going to drop, baby. Great catch by Dutson. Trying for the double. Cubs win. Holy cow. Dutson made the play with the back to the infield. Look at the scene out there.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast. It's time to remember this crap with Mike Donahue. Mike, how are you doing?
Good, Andy. Long time no talk.
Well, we can't run out. We have to parse these out. Although I'm sure we can always find something to remember crap about. But
Plenty of good Cubs baseball too. That's keeping the content churning out here. You're not
it is funny
disgusted
how
with the team taking weeks off.
Yeah, it is funny how you take less time looking back when the team that's good is actually worth watching. Even if Marquis tries to make it really hard by putting the least talented announcer in baseball history on the mic. He's back again tonight for no apparent reason.
God damn.
So that was
What's wrong with Boog?
I don't know. Maybe he's on strike. Not a hunger strike.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, we know that. He's not well. He's in and out. He's making oblique allusions to his health. Yeah. I heard him interviewed on the Score MVP. I can't remember, like a couple weeks ago. He was like joking about it, but he's trying to figure it out.
I have a new theory about why he's not making the road trips. Doesn't have a real ID yet. Can't get on a plane. Think that's possible? Probably not, but you never know. So anyway, we are slowly making our way around the field with these Cubs. We've done the entire outfield. We did third base. And now it's time to look at a position it's a strange position in Cub history. They've had some really good ones. They've had long stretches of terrible. But that's why they're the Cubs.
We know it.
We're at shortstop. Number 6 on your scorecard. And as we do this, we go all the way back to the origin 149 years ago, 1876.
1876. Albert Spalding and the boys.
And we work our way all the way to the current time, and then we try to rank the top 5. And I warned you, I tried to do it, and it's really hard to do the shortstops.
You warned me about it. Yeah, I'm going in cold. I haven't really given much thought exercise to it.
Well, you don't have to do that much research. You know all these guys.
I know quite a few, but I always look forward to being educated on these 19th century fellas, these mustachioid old pre-20th century ball players. 2 words.
For example, the first regular shortstop in Cub history is a guy who played. He played the most games at shortstop for them in 1876 and 1877. Then again in 1879. Then he took a little gap, played some other spots in 1883 to 1885. His name was John Peters, and he was not president of Northern Illinois University. That's a different John Peters. That guy's still alive, so there's no way he was playing for the Whales or the Orphans or whatever they were in 1870s. The White Stockings, right?
White Stockings, yeah. Then the Colts. I think the Colts, Orphans, Cubs. Yeah, Colts are in there.
Whales are in there somewhere.
Wales. Okay, interesting because Wales was the Federal League team for whom Wrigley
maybe
Field
Wales
was
isn't
originally built.
I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, John Peters, he played all that time. He didn't do much of note. He had a 3.2 WAR in 1876, though.
Amazing.
Whatever that means. But here are his comps, according to Baseball Reference. Let's give you an idea of what kind of player John Peters was. His comps. Number 5, Felix Fermin.
Whoa.
He was the Felix Fermin of the 19th century.
100 years earlier.
Number 6, Ernie Johnson.
Wait,
but not that Ernie Johnson, and not
or
that other, not his son. Yeah, not the TNT announcer or his dad who played for the Braves in Milwaukee and then announced for them
Ernie
forever.
Johnson was a former ball player. Wait, hold on a second. I have to stop you right there.
Ernie Johnson Sr.
Growing up with WTBS, we would hear Skip Carey and Ernie Johnson. There might have been a couple other guys in there, Dave Van Weeren, maybe, I don't know. But Ernie Johnson's son is the Ernie Johnson that everyone knows now, right? With the pencil thin mustache, right?
Yeah.
That guy's dad, who was the Braves announcer, was also a former ball player.
He was a pitcher who pitched for the Boston Braves, the Milwaukee Braves, and the Baltimore Orioles.
Okay.
He pitched 273 games in the big leagues. He was 40 and 23.
Was he on the 57 and 58 Brewers teams that
Braves? Yes, he was on both.
Braves that won and lost the World Series in successive seasons.
See if he
he is not the same Ernie Johnson that draws the comp for John Peters.
No, that's a guy who played 1912. This Ernie Johnson, Ernie Sr., the announcer's dad, pitched in the World Series in 1957. He pitched in 3 games. He had a 1.29 ERA in 7 innings. He only gave up 2 hits and he gave up a homer. Somebody struck out 8 and only walked 1. Yeah, Ernie was good, and he was a good announcer.
Legend in Milwaukee, I'm sure. And then he was. Yeah, I knew him as a broadcaster at Braves games in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was. I'm pretty sure he was a Milwaukee Braves announcer who came to Atlanta
with the team up north. Yep.
And little Ernie, the one we know, tried to play baseball at University of Georgia. Apparently, he was a good high school player, but not good enough to play at Georgia.
Locally recruited.
Got into journalism instead. Yeah.
Yes.
So not that Ernie Johnson, but there is a guy. There is another Cub that John Peters is on there. Number 7 comp, Emil Verbin.
Very iconic name for all the ironic reasons, right?
From the Emil Verbin Society,
yes,
which George Will is a member,
and Hillary Rodham Clinton, crossing the political divide in the Beltway. Yeah, very popular Washington D.C., like a pre-internet, tongue-in-cheek, ironic sort of a homage to an otherwise. I believe Emil Verbin is a very unspectacular player.
He played 7 years in the big leagues. He played 3 years for the Cubs.
Just 3.
He was a second baseman. For the Cubs, in those 3 years, he had 280, 300, and 334. That was a slash line. He had a homer.
Okay. Is he a shortstop too? Is that what's drawing the comp?
No, just I think
able to
it's
jump
weird.
Ahead and check a box.
Some of these second base guys have catchers as in their comps, which is weird.
Interesting.
Usually, it does stay very specific, position specific.
By the way, I think our personal friend Forklift Frank is also a member of the Emil Verbin Society.
Yeah,
yes, I think so.
1878, The shortstop was a guy named Bob Ferguson. And this warmed my heart when I saw this. He played 14, much like Emil Verbin, who also only hit one. He played 14 seasons in the big leagues. He hit one home run. Wow. Who do you think his number 3 comp is?
Mick Gallagher?
No, Mick didn't hit any.
Because Mick didn't hit any, right? I know. That's why I said it.
It's a guy.
Is it Dwayne Kuiper?
It is Dwayne Kuiper.
Oh, yeah. Who also only hit one home run.
The fact that he was on the list. As soon as I saw him, it would be funny if Dwayne Kuiper was a comp, and he is.
That is one of those things that anyone that watched an inordinate amount of Cubs baseball in the 80s would recognize, because Kuiper was still playing at that point for the San Francisco Giants, and Harry was always delighted in reminding everybody that 10 years earlier, as a member of the Indians, Dwayne Kuiper hit his one, and to that point and beyond, only big league homer off of Steve Stone. Harry's partner.
They celebrate it every year on the Giants broadcast, and they show it.
I think we mentioned that, him and Kruko.
And one year they had, the Giants had a Dwayne Kuiper home run giveaway, and they gave away a bobblehead of their announcer in a Cleveland Indians jersey. And the fans loved it.
That's great.
They don't care. Dwayne Kuiper is Emil Verbin's number 1 similar batter.
Wow. All right.
So, see, it works.
But Bob Ferguson draws the comp, the 14-year shortstop with 1 home run. Wow. Amazing.
1883 to 1885 was Tom Burns, who we had talked about him. He also played third base for a few years.
Okay.
So we talked about him.
I've already forgotten.
His comps were Tony Womack, Jerry Lumpy, Lumpe, I think it's Lumpy.
Yep.
And Buck Weaver.
Oh, Buck Weaver. Is he free now?
Recently reinstated Buck Weaver.
Okay, he's no longer on the blacklist.
That nonsense. But by age, number 24, Tom Burns, when he was 24, was Kevin Stocker. And when he was 27 and 28, he was Mark Grudzielanek.
Oh,
so there you go.
There's some good names for you. Kevin Stocker, I believe, member of the 1993 Philadelphia Phillies National League Pennant Win Club.
1886 to 1889 was a guy named Ed Williamson. He played 11 years for the Cubs.
He came up before, I believe, Ed Williamson.
He played third base from 1879 to 1885. He moved to short.
He was an early runner for greatest third baseman, actually, I believe. That's why I remember him until he got knocked off.
He broke in 1880. I don't know what year I screwed this up. Anyway, he broke in. He spent his first year with the Indianapolis Blues. Then he came over to play for whatever the Cubs were then. His comps, number 1, Tom Burns.
There you go. See?
Number 7, Luis Alicea. Bobby Avila.
Oh, wow. There's a
Robbie Thompson.
Wow. Total remember this crap right there. Robbie Thompson comes with a trigger warning, of course.
Yeah. 1890 to 1891, Jimmy Cooney.
Jimmy Cooney.
He led the National League in plate appearances with 654 in 1890. Good for him.
And his grandson would lose the heavyweight championship to Larry Holmes.
He had two sons, Jimmy Jr. and Johnny, who played in the big leagues.
Oh, maybe. But none of their kids were Jerry Cooney?
I don't know. It could be. His comps, number 8, Bobby Meacham.
Yankees, who I believe George Steinbrenner demanded be sent back to Columbus after he made an error in a game. Something like that.
Let's see. And then when he was 20, his 26th year, when he was 26, his comp is George Magoon. I just like the name, but then he comes up again. We're going to get more George Magoon.
That sounds like a very 19th century player name. Tell me it is. George Magoon.
Yeah, it's about this time.
Yeah.
1893 to 1898. We get a first real stretch here. Bill Dolan.
Yep.
Bill was a 6.1 WAR player in 1892.
Yeah. That's the leader of the clubhouse.
He averaged 15 triples a season for his first 6 seasons.
I believe Bill Dolan held a hitting streak of some sort that I believe his name was resurrected in the late 70s when Pete Rose had his 44-game hitting streak when he tied Willie Keeler. I believe Bill Dolan had a similar streak, but it gets lost to the sands of time because it was in the 19th century.
He played 8 years for the Cubs.
First great player. Yeah.
And 21 years in the big leagues. He led the National League in RBI with the Giants in 1904 with 12.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
Modern era.
It was like 80 or something. His comps. Omar
Hall of Famer,
Vizquel.
right? Okay.
Is he? Or Hall of Very Good?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I thought I marked down the Hall of Famers. Not a Hall of Famer.
Okay. All right. Just a very good player.
His comps. Omar Vizquel. Yeah, let's hope Bill wasn't sexually harassing the Bat Boys. Luke Appling, Louis Aparicio, Dave Concepcion, Ozzie Smith,
all right,
and Frankie Frisch.
Oh,
who knew Ozzie Smith was the Bill Dolan of the 70s and 80s?
Go crazy, folks.
Oh God, do you listen to Cub games on the MLB app, right? The radio one.
Yeah.
If I have to hear that fucking Jack Buck go crazy or a home run by the Wizard, I'm gonna shoot myself. Just
that was the first career home run he hit left-handed, though.
Yes, it's the first ever left-hand homer. He only hit 5 ever. That was the first one.
Scott Podsednik shit.
Yes, it is. 1899, great name, Gene DeMontreville. His brother Lee DeMontreville played 26 games for the 1903 Cardinals.
Oh.
Gene played 11 seasons for 8 teams. He was a career .303 hitter with a 97 OPS plus. And how about this? He was traded away on January 25th, 1899. No, wait. What happened? Oh, this is how they got him. He was traded on January 25th, 1899 from the original Baltimore Orioles for Bill Dolan. And then he was traded back to the Orioles on August 2nd for George Magoon.
Whoa! Pulling some shit. That was a famous Orioles team with Wee Willie Keeler, John McGraw, and Hugh Duffy. I think they won 3 pennants and then they disbanded. Kind of a legendary team.
His comps include D. Gordon, Damaso Garcia, and Ryan Theriot. Now we're to the 20th century, 1900 to 1901. Although, because we're talking about the all-quarter century team, Dave and I had a long discussion on the pod this week about shouldn't last year have been the quarter century? Or should it be next year?
The first year of the century is actually 2001, right?
So should it be next year? Should it have been last year? Should have been. We went down that rabbit hole for a while.
We'll get to Ricky Gutierrez when we get to 2001.
Well, 100 years before Ricky, the second baseman was Barry McCormick.
Shortstop
was Barry McCormick. He was worth 1 WAR over 2 years. So he was half a win better than a replacement player each of his 2 seasons. His comps include Nick Punto and former Cub first base coach Sonny Jackson. No, Sonny was the coach who couldn't wear a jersey. This became a thing.
The Chris Bosio thing.
No, Sonny was not allowed to wear one. Dusty had too many coaches on his staff, so one coach couldn't dress for games. And the reason this became a thing, I'm editing books about the 03 Cubs and the 2016 Cubs. And I ran into the part in the 03 one where Aramis comes over and isn't wearing 16 right away. And we couldn't figure out why. And it's because Sonny Jackson, even though he didn't wear a number, was 16. So then he eventually gave it to Aramis. I don't know what I've got to look up what number Aramis wore. I think it was only 1 game.
Wow.
It was kind of like the Nomar thing.
That's a fun fact.
Kind of like the Nomar thing where Nomar had to wear 8 his first game until Barrett finally gave it to him. Yeah. Gave him 5. Anyway, Sonny Jackson. Okay, now 1902 to 1912, a guy everybody's heard of.
Yep.
Joe Tinker. He is a Hall of Famer. His career slash line, 262, 308, 353.
Oh, my God.
He hit 31 homers. He stole 336 bases. And here's what I can't understand. In 1908, the year the Cubs won the World Series, their second World Series, he was worth 7.9 WAR. He must have been the greatest defensive second baseman ever because he slashed 266, 307, 391. How the hell is he worth almost 8 wins?
Stolen bases.
It had to be.
Get caught a lot? Did they track caught stealing from that era?
No, but when they start to, wait till you hear some of the Yeah. Oh, God.
40% right.
Oh.
So Tinker, we have to just sort of figure he really was a dandy glove man at short.
I guess. I mean, he's in the Hall of Fame in big part. So is Johnny Evers, right?
Right. Neither of whom
because
would
of the
appear
poem?
to be on merits. Yes, exactly.
I mean, Frank Chance was a Hall of Famer. Yeah, he was good enough.
He was the manager and an above-average player.
And it is Evers, not Evers, right?
It is Evers, correct. Yeah. It is Evers.
Yeah. And it's not Tinkers. It's not Tinkers. Right. It's not Tinkers to Evers to Chance. It's Tinker.
Just like, oh, God. Who was the Bears receiver? It's like fourth in history. They drafted him around the time they had Brandon Marshall. He went to the Eagles.
Oh, Alshon Jeffries? Everybody called him Jeffries.
Everyone wanted to call him like Haywood Jeffries, but no, it's not.
Well, and Haywood Jeffries didn't spell his name right. It was Jeff. He spelled it Jeff Ayers.
That's right.
Like Dwayne Wade and Isaiah Thomas. It's like, come on, guys.
Yes.
Spell your name right.
Yeah, a common misconception, people conflate the S at the end of Evers and
I know as a kid I thought it was Tinkers to Evers to Chance.
Right. Yeah, me too.
It's not.
Tinker.
Joe played in 4 World Series. 06, 07, 08, and 10.
And 10, yeah.
235, 307, 309. In 21 World Series games, he had a homer, 6 RBIs, and 8 stolen bases. He was traded to the Reds on December 12, 1912 with Harry Chapman and Grover Loudermilk for Red Corridon, Bert Humphries, Pete Nisley, Mike Mitchell, and Art Phelan, and Joe became the Reds player manager. And I was trying to think that somebody else got traded to a team and became the manager. The Cubs did that twice, where they traded a guy.
Okay, I can't remember.
I think it was one of our third basemen. I think same thing.
Okay,
I don't
recall offhand.
Joe finished his career as the player manager for the Chicago Chi Feds in the Federal League.
That's the Federal League, yeah. I think, yeah. They had purged a handful of Major League ball players. I would say, based on the war and things we can't see in the poem, Bill Dowling has been pushed aside. I've got Joe Tinker as the leader of the clubhouse right now.
Joe's comps. One's a Hall of Famer, who also shouldn't be. Ozzie Guillen, Alfredo Griffin, Phil Rizzuto.
Yeah, Scooter. Yeah, no way.
But if you go by age, from 26 to 35, it's the same guy. Rabbit Moranville, who will come up later.
Yeah, he will.
1913.
He was a second baseman, though, actually, I think.
Yeah, he played 1 year of short for the Cubs.
Okay.
1913, it was Al Bridwell.
Giant, right?
Hmm?
Was he a giant at one point? I feel like Bridwell was.
Could be. He played 11. He played 11 years in the big leagues, but only 1 year for the Cubs.
I believe Bridwell may have been involved in the Merkle play. That's why it rings a bell. I think he was on the 08 Giants, and I think he hit the ball. He hit the ball that Merkle failed to touch second on. I think. Is that possible?
It is possible.
Am I over my skis on that? I definitely heard the name, but not with the Cubs.
He played for the 08 Giants, so they would have been there.
Yeah, he was involved. He was involved in the whole sequence of events involving Merkle. And that's how I know the name. I never knew he played for the Cubs, and only for 1 year.
He was a good player for the Giants. 4.5 WAR in 08, 5.5 WAR in 09. He hit 2 home runs in his career in 11 years.
Twice as many as
his 1 year with the Cubs.
Dwayne Kuiper.
240, 358, 291. Not a lot of slug. He got on base. He had 12 extra base hits in 405 at bats. I looked it up because the slugging was so low. His comps, one of them is Cesar Turris. You think Al was in the dugout? They're just giving it to somebody's crotch,
just grabbing his balls.
And then by age 26 and 27, it was Don Kessinger.
Oh.
28, it was Omar Vizquel. Omar comes up a lot.
The slap hitting part tracks.
1914, they turned it over to a guy they got in the Joe Tinker trade, Red Corridon.
Okay.
He hit 230, 323, 318 with 13 stolen bases, which was by far the best season he had in his 5-year career. So Red, not so good. But his comps are both guys I enjoyed. Pete Kozma, That terrible shortstop for the
That's
Cardinals.
That's a Cardinal from the last 20 years. Yeah,
and
another one of those.
David Letterman's favorite shortstop.
Buddy Biancalana?
Buddy Biancalana in the countdown for greatness.
He'd have a big thing. It was around the time that Pete Rose was tracking down Ty Cobb, and he was doing the Buddy Biancalana meter. And he'd go, "He went 1 for 4 today." Ding!
And then Buddy would go on to be a World Series hero for the Royals.
He was on the 85 team, yeah. He and UL Washington split the reps at shortstop. Very relevant. He's a shortstop. It's okay to talk about it. Never played for the Cubs, but still a shortstop.
I'll look real quick what did he do in those?
Buddy Biancalana.
Buddy Biancalana against the Cardinals. He had he had 4 hits in the ALCS against the Blue Jays. He was 5 for 18 with 2 RBIs, 278, 435, 278, all singles.
Damn, that had to be infuriating for the Cardinals. Kind of like when Augie Ojeda was hitting the Cubs in the 07 LDS.
So he had 9 hits in the playoffs for the Royals. In the regular season in 1985, he had 26 in 81 games.
He had a third of his many hits in the postseason as he had in the regular season. More than that. That's incredible.
Okay, now we're to the point where they're tracking caught stealings. And it's 1915. Bob Fisher probably wishes they didn't. He had a pretty decent year, it looked like. 287, 326, 370. He led the National League with 42 sack bunts, and he stole 9 bases, which is great.
And?
He attempted 29 steals. Got thrown out 20 times.
Wow. His
Bob,
teammates must have been getting really pissed off.
Maybe stomp it. One of his comps, John Wathen. So there you go.
Oh,
we got a catcher.
The catcher who set the mark for stolen bases by a catcher in the 80s. May still have it. Almost like Pudge Rodriguez or somebody came along. I don't know.
1916 and 1917, the Cubs had a guy named Chuck Wortman. Wortman. Lovely name. He was worth -2 WAR. And Baseball Reference didn't do comps for him. I've never seen that. There were none. He's incomparable.
He's incomparable. All
right, now 1918, 1922. Cubs are getting good again. 18, they went to
they're
the
a
World
pennant
Series.
winner in 18. They're a pennant winner in 18. Then they kind of went into a little bit of a dark period after that.
And their shortstop is a guy you've heard of, Charlie Holliker.
Yep. Why? Why have we heard of Charlie?
I don't know. I just recognize the name. And he led the National League in hits. As a rookie in 1918, he led the National League in hits with 161.
Okay.
He played 7 years for the Cubs. His career slash line was 304, 370, 392. Pretty good.
Yeah.
14 homers. He stole 99 bases in 179 attempts.
Wow.
I wrote, "Come on, man," next to that. He led the National League in caught stealings in 1922 when he stole 19 bases, but he got caught 29 times.
Damn. There's just some reckless base running going on here.
His comps include Jason Bartlett and Ryan Theriot.
Theriot again. If we hear Theriot a third time, we're doomed.
Oh, he's in here a lot.
Yeah, he's going to have to be because he was a Cubs shortstop. So
1923 and 1924, Earl John Adams, better known, of course, as Sparky.
Oh, yeah. Who could forget Sparky Adams?
Good old Sparky Adams.
Yeah.
Played 13 years in the big leagues. First 6 with the Cubs. Led the National League in at-bats in 1925, 26, and 27. He led the National League in doubles with the Cardinals in 1931. He had 46. That's actually a lot of doubles. He was traded from the Cubs to the Pirates on November 28th, 1927 with Pete Scott.
Charlie Grimm?
For Kai Kyler.
Oh, just Kyler, but not Charlie Grimm. I feel like the Cubs really purged the Pirates back then to build their next great team.
Funny you should say that because it's coming up here in a minute.
Good.
In 1933, he was traded from the Cardinals to the Reds in a deal that included Leo DeRocher.
What a whip. How about that?
His comps include Felix Milan.
Again.
If I told you maybe Sparky got hit by a lot of pitches, would you come up with a guy who might make his comp list then?
Is it the Beige or Ron Hunt or Don Baylor?
Ron Hunt.
Okay.
Then he's got some Cubs. Glenn Beckert, Woody English. Okay. Oh, that's it. And then Johnny Pesky and Tommy Herr.
And Woody English is just around the corner. So we talked about him. He was third baseman, kind of moved around. He might have been even be coming up here.
Yes, he is.
Shortstop briefly. Okay.
1925, it was Rabbit Moranville, another dubious Hall of Famer.
Yep.
That was his only year as a Cub. He had 233, 308, 293, stole 6 bases in 11 attempts. He was 33 years old, and he played 10 more seasons. He was washed up then, and he played 10 more years.
Yeah.
He was acquired in a trade with the Pirates with Wilbur Cooper and Charlie Grimm, and for Vic Aldridge, George Grantham, and Alan Nyhouse. He was released by the Cubs after the 1925 season. Rabbit's comps include Ozzie Smith, Luis Aparicio, Nellie Fox, Omar Vizquel, Dave Concepcion, Bert Campaneris, and Bill Dolan.
But do we not establish that Marinville was otherwise a second baseman? Or did I have that wrong? I remember his name came up. His name came up in the 80s, and I thought it was in conjunction with Ryan Sandberg. I think he must have been a very good defensive player. Yeah. Sandberg had done something defensively that hadn't been done since Rabbit Moranville, unless somehow I was thinking of Larry Bowa and he was a shortstop. But that was... I know he was a member of the 1914 Miracle Boston Braves that came from last place and won it all over Connie Max A's.
He was he played shortstop exclusively from 1912 to 1919, including when he finished third in MVP voting in 13 and second in 14. Then he played short second in 20.
Yeah.
He played some second base for the Pirates. He played some second base when he returned to Brooklyn after the Cubs got rid of him, and then he played some second. But he played his last two.
So it must have been.
Well, it's weird. His last 3 years, when he's old, he plays only second base, and his numbers aren't very good. But he is in the top 15 in MVP voting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Maybe it's the
6 of the last 7 years. So he must have been a defensive whiz. I don't know. He's fast.
I thought there was some Sandberg connection. Yes. Rabbit Moranville.
He stole a bunch of bases until he basically stopped running in 1924, the year before he got to the Cubs.
When he turned 50?
Yeah, when he was 33. And then he played, like I said, 10 more years after that. 1926. See if you remember this name. Jimmy Cooney Jr.
Oh, my God. Father and son combo.
We got a legacy. Yeah, we need the dudes.
Like Ken Dorfman. Unless you're a loser, like Kent or whatever. Like, I forget the line. I heard legacies get it automatically. Well, typically, unless you're a total loser, like him. Forget his brother's name.
So Jimmy Cooney Jr. played 1 year at shortstop for the Cubs. He had 251, 288, 312 with a homer and 47 RBIs, 141 games. His comps include Swede Risberg. Also, recently off the banned list.
All right, so far 2 Black Sox have been mentioned. 2 of the 8.
1927 and 1929, and again in 1931, it's Woody English. We talked about a lot on our third base.
We did.
Because he played a lot of
moved all around the infield, apparently. And those are good teams. You know, this is the Bill Veeck Sr. winning pennants every 3 years between 29 and 38.
He started as a shortstop his first 3 years. Then he went to third for a year, went back to short, and then he went back to third. And his comps include World Series MVP David Eckstein. 1930, Clyde Beck. And know nothing about Clyde except he has some unfortunate comps. Chris Getz and Manny Alexander. I did not expect Manny Alexander to pop up in this. I wonder, do you think Clyde ever lost a bunch of money wrapped in a towel in a hotel lobby?
The Waldorf Astoria in Miami Beach.
He's hanging out with, who would he have been hanging out with? He would have had to have hung out with Hack Wilson. Hack completely hammered, passed out.
With some bootleg liquor, yeah.
Somebody walks off with their cash. 1932 to 1938, and again in 1946.
Whoa.
A little gap there he had to recuperate from his bullet wounds. Billy Jurgis, who was famously shot by Violet Popovich. Paul's grandma, mother?
Might have been.
On July 6, 1932.
Okay. Now is my Paul Harvey rest of the story coming in here. I'm going to stop for a minute. First of all, let's put aside the fact that you might hear that like, wow, that must have been what inspired The Natural. Because there was but then there was another case 15 years later, a guy that came up with the Cubs, Eddie Waitkus, and got traded to Philadelphia, came back to Chicago, and he was shot in Chicago at the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Edgewater by a Cicero woman that had developed an obsession with him. So there's like this weird Chicago connection. It happened twice. And so if Bernard Malamud, who wrote The Natural, he had no shortage, I guess, of real life inspiration for major league ball players getting gunned down by women. And they both have this connection, at least to Chicago, if not directly the Cubs, because Waitkus was with Philly. Jurgis was very much the Cubs shortstop. Now, that's an aside. Here is the rest of the story. When Jurgis was convalescing, the Cubs, who had won the pennant 3 years earlier and would go on to win the pennant that year, needed to fill the vacancy left by Jurgis, and they were able to acquire a fellow by the name of Mark Koenig, who had actually been a utility player, such as it was back then, for the Yankees in their early ascension with Ruth and Gehrig and Lazeri and Waite Hoyt and those teams. So legend has it, Mark Koenig steps in for a Bill Jurgis who was shot by, I don't know, was it a spurned lover or just, we can get back to that, but he's out. The Cubs get this Koenig fella. He steps in admirably. He keeps the Cubs in contention. Jurgis comes back. The Cubs win the pennant and apparently decide to stiff Mark Koenig out of a World Series share.
Of course they do.
Yes. And so the backdrop that a lot of people will sort of acknowledge with Babe Ruth calling his shot in the World Series, there was a lot of acrimony. Cubs had some red-ass pitchers, Charlie Root definitely among them. The Yankees were at their peak. I mean, Ruth was actually on the downside of his career, but they were a household name. They had won the series in 23, 27, 28. It was only their fourth World Series, but they were in the early ascension, and they were already very much well known. And there was a lot of bickering, and that's all been established. But I think the real piece of context that people has been lost in the sands of time, but I remember reading across it, is that the Yankees just were absolutely miffed that the Cubs would stiff their ex-teammate like that, and that really the whole cascade of events, beginning with Bill Jurgis getting shot and the Cubs hiring his replacement, whom they later stiffed, is really one of the key elements that help fuel the sort of bitterness between the two teams.
Yeah, because there's a lot
and
of...
now you know the rest of the stories.
There's a lot of people who think that Babe was just like... He wasn't really pointing, I'm going to hit a home run to center field. He was just giving it to the Cubs and waving.
You guys suck, and we're kicking the shit out of you, because they did. They did it at 32. They did it at 38. They won 8 straight World Series. The Cubs didn't even win one of those games. When the Cubs, when Eric Karros hit that home run off of Juan Acevedo in that epic Kerry Wood, that was the Cubs' first time beating the Yankees in. It was the Cubs' first time beating the Yankees in 10 attempts. But yeah, the very first time they met in the 32 World Series, the Yankees win the first 2 in New York, and then Ruth and Gehrig were both mashing the ball. But there was a lot. You're right. Ruth was just talking shit. Yeah, I don't think he was calling a shot. He was probably just saying, "You cheap motherfuckers, watch what I'm going to do here," or whatever. So, but that I did want to make sure that I got that into the record. It pertains to Jurgis, and that his absence created a void that was filled by a player that they regrettably stiffed, and that really kind of helped fuel a lot of the animosity in the subsequent World Series that season.
Well, according to the Society for American Baseball Research, better known as SABR, attractive and outgoing, Violet Popovich fell for Chicago Cubs shortstop Billy Jurgis soon after she met him at a party in 1931. Such a personality, the 21-year-old brunette exclaimed a year later. Such a man. I love Bill Jurgis for himself, not for his place in the public eye or his popularity.
Or his 230 batting average.
Yeah. As for Jurgis, age 25, his popularity in place in public eye seemed assured during the Cubs' 1932 season. The Brooklyn native had signed with the Cubs in 1929, played minor league ball to 1931 when manager Rogers Hornsby promoted in the big leagues. Jurgis completed in 88 games, finished his rookie year with a 201 batting average. After a healthy start in his second season, he was playing brilliantly, as reported in the New York Times, batting about 260. Sporting News considered his fielding a defensive masterpiece, impelling no less an authority on infielding than his manager, Hornsby, to declare that Bill is the best shortstop in the game. Jurgis and Popovich quarreled sometime in mid-June, and she apparently stayed in New York while the Cubs continued their road trip. The team came home following a 4-1 loss to the Cardinals on June 27th. Popovich returned to Chicago on July 3rd, took a room at the Hotel Carlos. Oh, Popovich returned. Yeah, and took a room at the Hotel Carlos, her usual living quarters, when she was in the city. The small residential hotel at 3834 Sheffield Avenue was just a couple of blocks north of Wrigley Field.
Yeah, right from the play. That's right. Right there.
And during the summer months, Jurgis and some of his teammates also stayed there, including Dave Martinez and Rafael Palmeiro. Oh, that's a different story. Ball players were at the Hotel Carlos on July 6th as the pennant-chasing Cubs were set to open a 3-game series against the Phillies. Popovich went to room 509 late that morning to talk to Jurgis, just to talk. While she, according to the Chicago Herald and Examiner, was reproaching him for neglecting her, she opened her purse and drew out a .25 caliber pistol. As the two struggled for the gun, 3 shots were fired. 1 bullet entered Jurgis' right side, deflected off a rib, and came out his right shoulder. The second grazed the little finger of his left hand. A third hit Popovich's left hand. Jesus. And one upper arm about 6 inches.
That is right. Wow. What's funny is Hotel Carlos, just being 2 blocks north of Wrigley itself, is only about 2 miles south of the Edgewater Beach Hotel, which is where Wake is shot. So very dangerous to be in a hotel along Sheridan Avenue between 1930 and 1950 if you're a ball player, I would say.
There's a lovely photo of Violet here in bib overalls with a horse. I don't know why.
Catherine the Great.
Yeah, that's right. Well, screw you, Billy.
I'm going off as secretariat.
Let's see. So Billy Jurgis played the Cubs for 10 years. He slashed .254, .316, .337. He played 7 more years for the Giants. He played in the 1932, 1935, and 1938 World Series. In 13 World Series games, he had .275 with a .370 on base and a .325 slug.
Okay.
He was traded after the 38th season to the Giants with Frank Demarie and Ken O'Day for Dick Bartell, Hank Lieber, and Gus Mancuso. His comps include Ozzie Guillen, again, Cookie Rojas, Mike Bordick, Alcides Escobar, Phil Rizzuto, Scotty Fletcher, and Joe Tinker.
And Joe Tinker.
Yeah.
Because it's almost a battle. I guess Tinker's still the leader. Jurgis is one of the better shortstops to have come along in the previous 20 years.
1939, the shortstop was one of the guys they got in the Jurgis trade, Dick Bartell. He was 31 years old at the time. It's the only year he played the majority of the time at short. His comps are Tony Fernandez, Elvis Andrews, Orlando Cabrera, Red Schoendienst, Mark Grudzelanek, Billy Herman, Edgar Renteria, and Jose Reyes. I think he might have been pretty good.
Heard them all?
I have a feeling he was good with the Giants, now with the Cubs.
Yes, Dick Bartell's a name I've heard of, just like Al Birdwell.
1940
Bridwell
was Bobby Mattick, Mattick. It was the only full year he spent in the big leagues, and this was why he had .218 with a .250 on base and a .252 slug in 128 games.
And yet I guarantee you my dad, were he alive, would tell me, even though he was only 7, that he remembered him.
His comps include Ron Gardenhire and Dud Lee. Not Dudley, Dud Lee. D-U-D, and his last name, L-E-E. 1941, the Cubs went to Bobby Sturgeon. He had .245 with a .260 on base and a .293 slug. But he was gone from 1943 to 1945 because, unlike Stan Musial,
that's right,
Bobby actually fought for his country.
Mm-hmm.
His number 1 comp, Rafael Bornegal.
I don't know who that is.
He was a bad shortstop from the 80s.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Why do I know that name? I do not know that name. Oh, well.
1942 to 1945, and again in 1947, the primary shortstop was Lenny Marullo. Why does that name seem familiar?
Because of the very memorable interview that Len Casper had with him, he was pretty much the last surviving member of the 45 Cubs. His grandson Matt was a corner infielder for the Minnesota Twins, maybe the White Sox.
And the White Sox. Yep.
And yeah, so I don't know what year that would have been. It's before the World Series. So sometime like around 2010.
Man, I couldn't tell you when
Lenny Marullo's old balls were wheeled up to the broadcast booth, and it was a cool interview. Len did a good job. It was neat. He was cogent, and he told. I don't remember any particulars, but it was much discussed shortly afterwards. It was kind of a shining moment.
Lenny died on May 30th, 2015.
Okay. Didn't get to see them win at all. But, yeah. He was, I guess you could say, he's the shortstop. The last shortstop before Edison Russell on a World Series team. Right? He was on the 45 Cubs. He was their shortstop, right?
He was on the 45 Cubs, but
not necessarily the shortstop.
He only got 2 plate appearances. Roy Hughes played short in the World Series for the Cubs, and you can see why. Roy hit .294 with a .429 on base and a .353 slug.
Wow.
Lenny's comps include Rafael Santana and George Magoon.
Wow, you've mentioned Ron Gardenhire and Rafael Santana in the span of a minute, which basically comprised the Mets shortstop duo in the 80s.
1946, Billy Jurgis was back.
After how many years? 8 years?
38 years old. He hit .222 with a .351
Did somebody not tell P.K. Wrigley that the war was over and you didn't have to continue to comb the world for enfeebled human beings to play ball?
Well, then in 1947, they went back to Lenny Marullo.
Okay.
1948 to 1953. Roy Smalley.
Yeah. Our friend Cubby Blue Stu Weinberg, still around. God bless him. He's got to be in his mid-80s. He would be one of the people that could tell you the jokes people made about Roy Smalley basically just sailing the ball into the stands behind the first base dugout. And we knew his son. He was a tops, being a National League fan and followed the American League. He was a tops baseball card that I always had for the Minnesota Twins in their weird uniforms. Roy Smalley Jr.
So Roy Smalley Jr. obviously was Roy's son. Did you know that his brother-in-law is a Hall of Fame manager? I think. I kind of got to look. He's got to be.
Is it Casey Stengel? Roy Smalley Sr. or Roy Smalley Jr.?
Senior.
Senior's brother-in-law.
Oh, maybe he's not.
He's a World Series winning manager.
He might
From
not.
what era?
He famously
Ralph
never won a World
Series. Gene Mauch.
Gene Mauch, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Hall of Fame, please.
Gene Mauch. Nobody came closer to winning things
he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Not getting them.
Yeah. He's dead.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Roy played shortstop for 6 years for the Cubs. He hit .232 with a .299 on base, a .370 slug. He had 61 homers. He had 21 homers in 1950. He led the National League in strikeouts in that same year with 114, but then he never struck out more than 58 times again. So he was just trying to sock some dingers, and he did, but he struck out a bunch. He also stopped hitting home runs after that. He only had 40 more in his entire career.
Well, he's being threatened probably with the managers of the day.
He played 11 years in the big leagues. His comps include, you think we had all the Met shortstops? Oh, Kevin Elster.
Oh, there you go.
Number 3, this is unfortunate. Terribly unfortunate. Ronnie Cedeno.
Oh, boy. I wonder if Roy ever got thrown out trying to steal second base on a walk.
Also includes Nick Ahmed, Adam Everett, Dale Berra, Bobby Crosby, and Jimmy Quirk.
Did you do the sniffing of your nose after Dale Berra intentionally?
Did I?
I don't know. It sounded. Man,
why would I have done that? Pittsburgh drug trial. I'm not sure if you've heard of this guy who played shortstop for the Cubs from 1954 to 1961. The marquee only has one highlight of him ever that they show over and over again. His name was Ernie Banks.
Mr. Cub.
For some reason, he... wait a minute. Put this down. No, don't worry about it. As just his shortstop stats.
Okay. Let's hear it.
290, 353 on base, 552 slug, 298 homers, 858 RBIs. He was the National League MVP in 1958 and 1959. He won the Gold Glove in 1960. And the Cubs won a Gold Glove, and 2 years later, the Cubs were like, you're not playing shortstop anymore. Actually, in 61, they were playing him at third. He led the National League in homers in 1958 and
a shortstop, leading the league in homers.
1959. He led an RBI in 1958 and 1959. He hit 40 homers 5 years in a row from 57 to 1960. He was a 14-time All-Star. For his career, he had 500.
He almost had to seem like a Shaquille O'Neal or like a Bo Jackson. Like, you know how Shaq was like 7'2", but also 300 pounds, which was unheard. Like all these slapsticks that we're talking about for 60 years. Like, yeah, they're great shortstops, but they can't fucking hit themselves out of a paper bag. And all of a sudden, there's this dude that comes out of the scene. He's leading the whole fucking league in home runs.
I should have looked this up because other than Roy hitting 21 homers in 1950, I don't know how many Cubs, if any, had hit double-digit homers.
Right.
And then
21 may have been the franchise record for shortstops at that point.
Yeah.
I bet.
And then 8 years later, Ernie just starts hitting 40.
Yeah.
Every year.
Unheard of. And it wasn't like he represented a new wave. Nobody else, it would die, and then shortstops, I feel like, would go back to being slapdicks for 3 decades until Ripken. And then it's been consistently different since the 80s. But, Ernie's an anomaly. 30 years before and 25 years after, I don't think, outside of a few guys like we mentioned, Rico Petrocelli in a previous cast, there's no other shortstop that was consistently doing what he was doing.
So overall, he had 512 homers, 2,583 hits. In 1959, he was worth 10.2 wins above replacement. Seems pretty good. He's one of only 4 shortstops, and he was the first, with 40 or more homers in a season. The only other National League shortstop is Fernando Tatis Jr., who hit 41 in 2021 and then immediately moved to the outfield. Rico Petrocelli hit 40 for the 1969 Red Sox, and then some guy named Alex Rodriguez hit 40 6 times. 98 to 2000 with Seattle, and then 01 to 03 with Texas. And it's still galling that he accepted that trade to the Yankees and moved to third base. A-Rod was the better shortstop. He was the greatest shortstop of all time, and he just stopped playing shortstop and played third because Derek Jeter had to play shortstop.
New player, so they could win one more World Series.
That's the only one he ever won.
Only one. Yep.
Ernie's comps, you may have heard of some of these guys, include, here's all 10 of them: Eddie Matthews, Mike Schmidt, Andre Dawson, Billy Williams, Gary Sheffield, Fred McGriff, Willie McCovey, Sammy Sosa, and Carlos Beltran.
Beltran and Sheffield are the only non-Hall of Famers. I'm not sure why Sheffield's not in the Hall of Fame. I think he probably should be.
Same reason Sammy's not.
Oh, yeah, it's Sammy's not.
All 10 of those guys, I guess McGriff.
They're Hall of Famers.
McGriff's in the Hall of Fame.
They're elite.
Fuck him. But
yeah.
All 10 have Hall of Fame resumes.
Yep.
And
100%.
Those are the ones compared to Ernie.
Got a new leader in the clubhouse, and I don't think he's going to be dethroned.
I don't know. What about the next guy? The guy who took over for him? Andre Rogers.
Oh, yes.
The Bahamian. The Bahamian Flash.
I was going to say there was a Caribbean element to this guy.
So the Cubs go from Ernie to, Ernie's still there. He's playing first. But to Andre Rogers, who in 4 years with the Cub averaged 250, 330, 363. He hit 28 homers in 4 years. Ernie was hitting 40 a year, and Andre hit 7 a year.
And they've already pushed Ernie to the corner. He's already at first base now. He's hit a little bit of third, and then he's relegated to first for the next 10 years, huh?
Andre stole 16 bases in 31 attempts in 4 years.
Oh, 50%. That's actually probably pretty good for those days.
He was acquired in a spring training trade before the 61 season from Milwaukee with Darryl Robertson for Mo Drabowski and Seth Moorhead. The only thing I know about Mo Drabowski is when the Cubs first put the phone in the bullpen,
yep,
Mo could imitate the manager's voice. And so to entertain himself, he would call down because he was a starting pitcher a lot, he would be in the dugout. He would call down and tell him to get somebody warmed up, and the manager would look down, and one of his pitchers was warming up in the bullpen for no apparent reason. Because Mo had got him to warm up. Yes.
That's a great prank. He was a pitching coach, too, for the Cubs, I believe, in 94. So.
His comps, number one comp for Andre Rogers, Ronnie Cedeno. Also, Pokey Reese and Ernest Riles. And by age, his age 26 season, he was Billy Gabarkowitz.
Oh, yeah.
Good job, guys.
Yeah, way to move Ernie off his short while he's still in his prime.
From 1965 to 1975.
Yeah, wow. Very long time.
Don Kessinger, 6-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glover. He played 16 years in the Bigs, 12 for the Cubs. He also played 3 for the White Sox, 2 for the Cardinals. Cubs traded him to the Cardinals.
He was the last player manager that we knew of until Pete Rose with the White Sox. That's what we knew of Don. I had a base of 1979 Topps card. Don Kessinger in a White Sox uniform. Man, it was like a shortstop manager, it might have been. And then it was after the fact that I learned he was really a Cub for 10 years. And even though he was a wet noodle of a hitter, I mean, that longevity would probably put him in the team photo here with Joe Tinker. But, they're all miles behind Ernie now. Jurgis, Joe Tinker, Kessinger.
Don hit a few home runs less than Ernie Banks. For the Cubs,
but more than Dwayne Kuiper. Or
Don played 12 years for the Cubs, and he hit 501 homers less than Ernie Banks.
He had 11 in his career.
He had 11 homers and 6,355 at bats.
Amazing.
His OPS plus for the Cubs for his career was 73.
Wow.
Remember, kids, 100 is league average. His best offensive season was 1972. He hit 271 with a 351 on base and a 334 slug. He had a homer and 39 RBIs, and he stole 8 bases in 15 attempts.
Go off, Don.
He was traded to the Cardinals after the 1975 season for Mike Garman. Now that's going to become important. Garman, that's going to become important later.
He'll get flipped for another shortstop, but we'll get there.
Don Kessinger's comps include Alfredo Griffin, Larry Bowa, Ozzie Guillen, Bill Russell, the 10-time NBA champ from the Celtics.
Yeah, that's right.
And number 9, Billy Jurgis.
Ooh, full circle.
1976. The one year he got to play it more than anybody else. Mick
Kelleher. Rizzello. Oh, Kelleher was the everyday shortstop. All right. Hey, good for you, Mick.
In 1976, he hit 228 with a 264 on base and a 270 slug. In his career with the Cubs, he had 226 with a 272 on base and a 268 slug. He played 622 big league games, 1,081 at bats, and he never hit a home run.
Yep. He was one of his quotes in one of the baseball quotation books I had was, "What's the big deal? You hit one, everyone wants you to hit another one."
He played 5 years. He played 5 years for the Cubs from 76 to 80. He was acquired from the Cardinals 2 months after the Cardinals traded for Don Kessinger. The Cubs had to give up Vic Harris to get him.
Okay.
His number one comp is Dick Tracewski. I just remember it's like the first base coach for the Tigers. Right?
Don't know. Nope, I got nothing.
By age 32, he's Pete Kozma. That seems about right.
Once again.
1977 to 1981. This is my first Cub shortstop.
Mine too.
Ivan DeJesus. And I remember that the first game I was at, maybe I talked about this. Ivan hit a foul ball that went up and over the grandstand. Foul. Straight back. And I thought it was like the greatest athletic feat I'd ever seen. The guy hit the ball out of Wrigley Field. And then in the game, it happened like 40 more times. And I'm like, okay, apparently that's not a big deal.
Correct.
But at first, I was
that guy should be in the circus.
How did he do that? He hit that so far. No, he didn't. Ivan played 15 years in the big leagues. He played 5 for the Cubs. And he was acquired from the Dodgers with Bill Buckner for Mike Garman and Rick Monday.
Good trade for the Cubs. Now, Rick Monday, of course, the heralded center fielder, who to this day, hopefully for not much longer, is the last Cubs center fielder in the last 60 years. Just the last Cubs center fielder to have at least 3, the bare minimum of 3 seasons in which he had played 125 games in center. He did it for 5 or 6 seasons. He was the last truly regular center fielder, and that alone kind of almost puts him in the top 10. Good player. He was the first ever amateur player drafted in the first ever draft in '66 by the Oakland A's. And I think he came to the Cubs for Kenny Holtzman. But had a good run in center, but that was a good trade for the Cubs. They were not really, going anywhere, but they got a 50% of their infield for the next 5 years. 2 good. I mean, Buckner was really good. And DeJesus, if you look at his numbers in a vacuum, some slapdick stuff, but we're back to that era. And I feel like, when we came into awareness of the world in the late 70s, early 80s, there were all of these stick figures like Johnny LeMaster and Mark Belanger, Larry Bowa, just guys that would hit. So DeJesus actually seemed to be a kind of a cut above those guys. Comes at 2 good players in Buckner and DeJesus.
But he got traded in 1982 for Larry Bowa and Ryan Sandberg, which means, by the power of whatever, Kessinger became Mike Garman, Mike Garman became Ivan DeJesus, and Ivan DeJesus became Ryan Sandberg.
I like
Cubs
it.
turned Don Kessinger into Ryan Sandberg.
Good work. Whatever the lineage was from John Holland to Salty Saltwell to Bob Kennedy to Dallas Green.
Yep.
So I just kept polishing that coin until it became Sandberg.
Ivan DeJesus stole 40 bases for the Cubs twice. 1978, he stole 41. In 1980, he stole 44. He got thrown out 12 times in 78 and 16 times in 80. That's not
pretty
terrible.
Good.
44 for 60.
For that time, it's great. Yeah.
And he led the National League in runs scored with 104 in 1978.
Okay, he was the leadoff hitter, except for that one year where all of a sudden Lenny Randle, we talked about it. Lenny Randle came to town and was the leadoff hitter in 1980 and then left, and then Ivan went back to batting leadoff.
Ivan's comps include number 1, Walt Weiss. 2, Cesar Turris. 5, Bucky Dent. 7, Harold Reynolds. 9, Spike Owen, Dave's brother. And 10, Craig Reynolds. So Harold Reynolds and his brother Craig. Are they brothers? They didn't look a lot alike.
Craig Reynolds' name came up the other day. We must have known this fact, but Pat Hughes, Patrick Hughes. I don't know how it was this day in history, maybe one of those things. Craig Reynolds once hit 3 triples in a game. I believe he was the first major leaguer to do that.
Wow.
So there's your shortstop Craig Reynolds fact that I just happened to come across.
Well, the Cubs go from Ivan DeJesus to the great Larry Bowa. He was a primary shortstop from 1982 to 1984. He was around in 85, and he had to take the job back for a while when Sean Dunston flamed out. But
that's right. But he was Dallas Green built that Philadelphia team. Guys like Mike Schmidt and Gary Maddox and Bob Boone. But like Larry Bowa was in that system from the early. He was around forever. Like he predated Lazinski. He came up in 64. I mean, he was a 38-year-old shortstop in 82. Like he was 3'6" and he was 37 years old. But it was like, okay, well, he's Larry Bowa. We knew who he was. The Phillies were a dominant team. But yeah, because he was so old, and Ivan was, still near his prime shortstop, Dallas Green was able to really leverage that difference to get a throw in.
Larry's last year with the Phillies wasn't terrible. He hit 283 with a 331 on base and a 339 slug. He never slugged. Right. That was an 87 OPS plus, which was the 3rd highest in his career.
Yeah. I love too that maybe Dallas Green kind of figured Paul Owens was he probably knew that was bullshit. He watched him for 25 years probably. And that's what coach it was an uneven shoot. There's 10 years apart between DeJesus and Bowa.
Yeah.
So it was just set up to the Phillies undervalued Sandberg. But that's the guy that Green wanted.
Larry with the Cubs was bad. And he was terrible in 1984. He was terrible. He wasn't just bad. He should have been unplayable. He was worth -1 WAR. He hit 223 with a 274 on base percentage and a 269 slug. He played in 133 games. He hit no homers, and he drove in 17 runs for the 84 Cubs, who scored runs with abandon. He drove in 17.
How did I not know that? That is remarkable.
He was completely washed, and he was out there playing every day.
Absolutely was. We've criticized. We're going to talk about it in a second, how the Cubs brought up Dunston early, but kind of almost didn't have a choice in some respects.
Well, Larry played 16 years in the big leagues, 4 for the Cubs. He was a 5-time All-Star, all for the Phillies.
He had 2,000 hits, amazingly, before he got to the Cubs.
In 1972, he led the National League in triples with 12 and sack bunts with 18. He finished third in National League Rookie of the Year voting in 1970. The guys he finished behind were Carl Morton, who won it, pitcher for the Expos, Bernie Carbo for the Reds, and Cesar Cedeno. Oh, and Wayne Simpson, a pitcher for the Reds. They all finished ahead of Larry. Overall, for his career, he hit 260 with a 300 on the dot on base average, a 320 slug. His OPS plus for his career was 71. He averaged one homer a year for 15 years. Larry gave you a homer a year, whether you needed it or not. He stole 318 bases. He stole 29 times and 33 times.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, in 4 years with the Cubs, he drove in 102 runs. In 4 fucking years. 102 runs.
And those teams, they had some player. I mean, it was batting eighth, but they had an all-star catcher, productive third baseman, Leon Durham.
He was released on August 13th, 1985. His comps include
I remember. Yeah.
Number 1 comp, Don Kessinger. Number 3, Maury Wills. Number 4, Alfredo Griffin. And number 6, Ozzie Guillen. It's funny how all the bad shortstops are compared to Ozzie Guillen.
Yeah, Ozzie's name has come up like a bad fucking penny.
Now it gets complicated. 1985 to 1991, 1994 to 1995, and 1997. My favorite player, Sean.
There he is.
I don't know if you ever heard this. He was the number 1 overall pick in 1982, ahead of Dwight Gooden, who went 5th, Dwayne Ward, who went 9th, Ron Karkovice, who went 14th, Todd Worrell, who went 21st, and the guy the Cubs clearly should have taken, Dale Spame, who went 25th.
Wow, good to know. And to this day, still the only time the Cubs have selected first in the MLB amateur draft. They just, for a while, they should have picked first, but they used to alternate American League, National League. So if you had the worst record, but it wasn't your year, you picked second. Cubs were horrible, of course, in 81. So Dallas Green, it's kind of a whole confluence of he builds that 84 team. He comes into town, he cleans house, he trades for half the Phillies roster, a bunch of veterans. That is the nucleus of the 84 team. And then we've discussed that the 89 team was the longer sort of sowed production of his farm system. And it all started with Dunston. That was his very first draft pick. Guy was batting like 800 in high school. And almost ahead of schedule, the Cubs win the division in 84. We just went over the shortstops numbers.
Yeah, it was
Dunston had progressed, but he was still premature. He was still not quite fully baked.
He'd only spent 2.5 years in the minors.
Yeah, and he was out of high school.
What they should have done was found
out of high school.
Yes, they should have found a stopgap shortstop because they had to move on from Larry. You had to find somebody for a year.
Yeah, they had Dave Owen in 84. Tom Verizon was another old.
Where was Scotty Fletcher?
He was traded in the Warren Brewster, Steve Trout
he was gone.
Trade.
Well, that's why.
We didn't mention Fletcher. By the way, when I know he never was the everyday shortstop, but he was a Cubs shortstop. Must be mentioned here only because I recall with excitement his very first plate appearance, in which he delivered a single. It was thrilling. Oh my God, Scott Fletcher. Who's Scott Fletcher? I don't know. He's a minor leaguer. It's very exciting. He's bad.
He got 13 more. He got 13 more for the Cubs.
Yes. And then
4 doubles in 1981.
Yes.
What about Mike Brumley? Where was Mike Brumley? Couldn't he have played?
Oh, that's right. Mike didn't come around till 84 into the system. Well, he didn't come into the Cubs till 87.
87. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Dunston, you got a team that comes out of nowhere. They win 96 games. They are an over-the-hill gang. The only youngs on the team were Durham and Sandberg and Dernier, and even Dernier was getting close to 30. Matthew was insane. Just a lot of, Jody was young. It was a mix, but they were not super young. They were certainly Bowa as a shortstop. It was so they kind of really pushed the calendar up a little bit on Dunston. And, I've compared him to the Corey Patterson thing 20 years later, different position, but where he just kind of did it. And you may have done a little bit of damage. Dunston had a fine career. We'll discuss. He's probably top 5 in this thing. We'll see. He was a 2-time All-Star, but
to me, it always kind of
felt. I know he's your favorite player, right? I know he's your favorite player, but it always kind of felt like he did. obviously he's the first pick in the draft. And it wasn't a Hall of Famer, so in some respect, he did not meet those outsized expectations. But I always had a twinge of just kind of missed it a little bit, a little disappointed, kind of. So part of it, I kind of blame the Cubs.
So in '85, when he starts the season as the shortstop and he struggles,
opening day.
He's Matt Shaw. He hits 194 with a 266 on base and a 319 slug. He goes back to Iowa. He comes back in the second half and he hits 287 with a 328 on base and a 416 slug. He hits 3 homers, drives in 14 runs in 51 games. So
very nice.
Not spectacular, but he was solid. He was very good in September. He's still
21, right?
He was going nuts. Yeah, it was his age 22 season. When did he turn?
22.
March 21st. Okay. He turned 22 in spring training.
All right, so he was a 22-year-old. Major league shortstop.
So he played 18 years in the big leagues. He played parts of 12 seasons for the Cubs. How many times in his career do you think Sean struck out? 100 times or more?
Just 7.
About 2.
I'm going low. Yeah, I was going to say.
1986, 114, and 1988, 108. 88 was one of his better years, too. His career slash with the Cubs was 267, 295, 407.
It's worse than Larry Bowa's career OBP.
With the Cubs, he had 107 homers, 226 doubles, and 48 triples. He stole 175 bases in 246 attempts. So, not great, but not terrible.
Okay.
He played only 25 games total in 1992 and 1993 due to a back injury he suffered putting Sean Jr.'s car seat in the car.
Yep. That was one epic
ruptured a disc.
Car seat. Yeah.
The first half of the 1988 season, when he was an All-Star, he hit 287 with a 306 on base, 423 slug with 8 homers and 42 RBIs. He was bad in the second half. He struggled in the first half in 1989, but in the second half, Sean hit 311 with a 337 on base and 401 slug with 4 homers and 33 RBIs.
Okay, still sub 800 OPS.
He played in 8 playoff series in his career, 1 with the Cubs.
It was 89.
He played with some with the Mets and the Cardinals, and the Giants.
And he hit a homer in the World Series.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Sorry.
His one playoff series with the Cubs, he hit 316 with a 350 on base against the Giants. He hit a home run in his final career at bat in Game 6 of the 2002 World Series to give the Giants the lead. Sean Dunstan's last at bat should have been a World Series winning home run.
Correct.
How about this? He was the DH in that game, and where do you think he batted?
Wait, Dusty's the manager.
Yep. Where you think Dusty would bat the DH?
I don't know.
Who's the DH hitting for?
The pitcher. So you bat him ninth?
So where do you bat him ninth? Bat him ninth. You DH a guy and bat him ninth.
That is so Dusty. I couldn't answer that because when Dusty managed the Cubs, the National League didn't have the designated hitter.
Sean's homer gave the Giants a 2-0 lead that grew to 5-0 in the 7th, and they lost 6-5.
Yeah. Wait, that was not his last game. That was his last at bat.
Last at bat. He did not play in Game 7.
Right, but he did not bat later in that game. You said he had a homer to put him up 2-0.
No, Tom Goodwin pinch hit for him later in the game. Another great Cub.
No wonder they lost that
one. Let's see.
Wow.
He left the first time. He went to the Giants after the 1995 season.
And I still recall him hitting a walk-off on a Saturday afternoon against the Cubs in Candlestick, early season, April or May or something. I was like, damn it.
He returned to the Cubs as a free agent for the 1997 season. He was traded to the Pirates on August 31st, 1997.
Yep.
The deal was conditional. And this is what Sean did for the Pirates. They were trying.
He hit a homer in his first game. He had a 3-run homer in his first game.
The Pirates were frantically trying to catch the Astros for the playoff. In 18 games with the Pirates, Sean hit 394 with a 389 on base. Very Sean.
Wow.
A 690 slug with 5 homers and 16 RBIs and 71 at bats. Pittsburgh ended up.
There's that 1,000 OPS.
Pittsburgh ended up 79 and 83, and it was in second place by only 5 games behind the Astros.
Yeah, Astros. Yeah, 97 was a weird year.
Because Sean played so well, the Pirates and Cubs could not agree on compensation, so the Cubs didn't get anything. He actually played too well to get a return.
Wow. See, and they showed to Cleveland.
Who is that? Who's that 97 running things? Is that Ed?
97 is still Ed. Yep, he was there through 2000. Or halfway through the 2000 season. Yeah, that's kind of like almost not as bad as, not as egregious letting Schwarber go for nothing. But and I do know that when Dunston he signed with Cleveland in the offseason, and Cleveland played the Cubs in an interleague game the following summer, and I went to a game in the bleachers in left field, and I sat right behind the guy who was known for creating the Sean-O-meter.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, but that was a big thing in the late 80s. But in the 1998, he brought it out to celebrate Sean, his return to Wrigley Field.
We're trying to bring back make it the Shaw-O-meter.
Well, you already brought up the one comp. They brought him up a little early. It wasn't ready yet. Had to go back in the oven.
Shaw was hitting 176 when the Cubs sent him down, and there was a moment on Saturday where he and Ian Happ had the same batting average. They were both hitting 253, which reflected much better on Matt Shaw than it did on Ian Happ.
It does. So, yeah, I'm trying to figure out at this point. I know we'll roll this up at the end, but like in my head, I'm doing a running sort of a Kentucky Derby. No one's going to catch Ernie, but I'm just trying to figure out. Shaw's in the top 5 at this point. I know we haven't gotten the World Series, but like, you're comparing eras. The expectations where shortstop sucked ass. He was sort of a new breed, not like Ernie, obviously, but like he had some power. Shortstops didn't have power, but they're also entering an age where they can more commonly do.
I remember we had this moment where our buddy Praz was looking at Sean's stats and could not figure out why people our age thought Sean was good.
He was exciting.
And we had to explain that he was, even though those are really modest numbers now, that and shortstops weren't doing that. They were all hitting like 2 homers a year, and there was Sean who at least had the ability to hit double-digit ones.
Yeah.
And then it was just the, I think Mark Grace, because he likes to make his hilarious, it was Sandberg to Dunston to
throws, right?
Whatever.
Yeah.
The road runs back there. Sean was a good defensive shortstop.
He was. And frankly, Leon probably bore the brunt of more of those earlier in his career. I don't think...
by the time Sean Grace got there, Sean was pretty much only breaking out the cannon when he thought he needed it.
Right. But I think more like the wild throws that the bull would have to pick out of the dirt. Grace didn't have to do that as much.
Right.
Sean did become he was always a little erratic, but no, he absolutely smoothed those edges defensively. And he was a raw talent.
And I was gratified during our 1989 pod because I talked about it. One of the most amazing plays I ever saw him make was the double play on the pop-up to end the game against the Mets, where he runs. He goes into left field to catch the ball. He becomes the left fielder because I don't know Dwight Smith.
But he's running away from the infield.
Is running circles, and he catches it over his shoulder, running straight to left field, turns, and on one hop nails the runner trying to get back to first. It's an amazing play, and we found it. Yeah. And it's one of those where as soon as I started looking for the highlight, I'm like, this probably isn't going to look like I think I remember it. But I think we've seen the Boys of Zimmer video so many times that I knew what it really looked like, and it really looked like that. It was a great play.
It did. Yeah, he really had his moments. I think the combination of he was always a little raw because he was brought up early, and then he got injury prone when if things broke differently. And I mean, he's getting by 1990, 91 when he starts to all of a sudden not play as much from health reasons. Of course, he's still not 30, so I do think that the injuries that he had were a little premature for most guys.
If you're a super athletic player and you completely fuck your back
years,
up,
and as a result, you missed your age 30 and 31 years or something. I think.
He also the way he would jump over guys trying to hit him at second, and he basically would be completely parallel to the ground as he threw the ball. There's a million awesome pictures of Sean like Superman in the middle of the air. The other thing I noticed during one of the old, they were showing an old game on Marquee was just the way Sean wore the uniform. he looks like he's playing today. He looked cool. Like he would roll the cuff, I don't know what you call it. It's a cuff, right? At the bottom of the thing. He would roll that up. He was the only player who did it. And so instead of having the blue at the bottom, he had it flipped up and there was a little bit of white under it. And he looked cool. And that's why I like it.
Yeah. I guess the last thing, too, you're talking about is barrel rolls at shortstop. And then you think about Sandberg doing it. And, like, separate conversation, greatest double play combos. And, like, all right, you've got this thing from 120 years ago that's immortalized in prose or poetry. But, like, all right, if you're going to have a discussion of the greatest middle infield, between 85 and 90, I mean, you're probably looking at it there, just if only for 5 years.
Yeah, and especially since Sandberg, of all the things he did, one of them, well, we get to second bases next. We can talk about all that. But the fact that he went more than a complete season without a throwing error at second base, where you're getting, that's in the good old days when guys could actually hit the second baseman. And that fucker never got hit, ever.
Right.
He always was able to tiptoe his way around and get a perfect throw off every time. It was amazing.
That also includes 4.63s where he's having to throw it to his right.
Yeah.
And that probably helps. That probably helped Dunston,
Yeah, you're getting a perfect feed pretty much every time because Ryan Sandberg.
Probably.
But if you're Ryan Sandberg, if you do miss it a little bit, Sean is going to catch it.
Correct.
That thing's not going to left field. Sean's going to find a way to catch the ball. Yeah, the double play combination they have right now is really, really good.
Oh my God!
They turn double plays that no other double play combination in the league can turn.
Crackerjack shit for sure. Yeah, it's worthy of the discussion. It's probably I'll start with those two, and then they're even already. So they've only been together.
But we know
2 years. But
we know who it is. It's Bump Wills and Larry Bowa. That was the best.
It's not Ray Sanchez and Jose Hernandez. I mean, I like when we leave the Dunston era, we're going into that nondescript Latino shortstop phase. I don't know how long.
You get a break right away, but
we do. Okay.
So Sean's comps, number 2, Starlin Castro, which I find crazy because Starlin could hit. Why are they comps?
So could Sean though. I feel like they both though were good at making. Well, Sean struck out a lot, but they were not selective. I mean, Castro had a better knack for hitting bad balls.
200 hits when he was 21 years old,
right? But he didn't walk a lot either. He wasn't disciplined. He was just better at hitting. But they both hit the ball hard, so I can see that actually.
Yeah. So on Sean's list, Starlin Castro, Rich Aurelia, who he played with the Giants.
I remember Rich Aurelia. Yeah.
Jim Fregosi, who kind of looked like my dad. Juan Samuel.
Jim Fregosi and the dad from Wonder Years. Okay.
Juan Samuel, who is the reason that Sean got to play with Ryan.
Let me see if I can follow your thinking, because the blockbuster trade that Paul Owens made after Dallas Green left was the young outfielder for Cleveland, Von Hayes.
That
he gave up a whole bevy of Philadelphia prospects and Manny Trio, but it included Julio Franco and George Vukovic, I believe, and I'm sorry, now I just forgot who the hell you're talking about.
Juan Samuel. Juan was playing second base for the Phillies when Ryan was starting off with the Cubs.
Over.
That's the guy who, when they made their decision, that's the decision they had to have made, right?
That was one of them. Yep. Yeah, it was Samuel, because Samuel was a rookie in '84, so he was a little bit
83.
Behind Sandberg. But I thought he was rookie year in '84.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. 1983.
Okay. But Darryl Strawberry was the rookie of the year in '83.
Right.
I thought Samuel was rookie of the year in '84.
He played in '80. Okay, you're right. He played in '83, but his rookie year was '83. He was an all-star.
So about a year and a half. Yeah, Samuel was really good. I mean, in '84, the Phillies were still feared. It was the Cubs and Mets in the end, but the Philly had, recently been on top for almost a decade. And Samuel was a very scary player to me in '84.
He's a really interesting player. He led the National League in triples twice in his first 4 years, and he led him in strikeouts all 4 years. Juan was really hecking. Juan's number one comp is Don Money. Look at this.
Oh, your guy.
Yeah.
The old Beloit Snappers manager.
Yep. How did they get? Let's see. When did they get?
The other thing is, I think Sandberg was a shortstop until he wasn't. Also, in the Phillies system, and he probably merits this discussion because I think he played one game at short for the Cubs. But
my guess is they were picking the Phillies they traded Sandberg because they had Samuel coming.
Okay.
I think.
But and they figured DeJesus would bump Bowa off as short.
Although they got Lenny Dykstra for him. So.
Oh. All right.
Lenny Dykstra and Roger McDowell. That.
And it was not a bad move early on. Samuel had a good start to his career, but obviously. Yeah.
And Sean's number 10 comp is Roy Smalley Sr. There you go. All comes full circle. Okay, so the guy who filled in for Sean in the 2 years when he had the bad back and then in 96 when he was gone was Ray Sanchez. Yep. Every Cub remembers the same Ray Sanchez highlight. It's the pop-up to him where Harry goes, "Don't worry, he's never dropped one of those in his life." And he drops.
Yep. Okay. Of course, the first thing I think of Ray Sanchez, I mentioned it before when we did the 1992 Cubs, watching a game in my apartment in Stadium View in late May. I was up there for the summer, where bases loaded, either extra innings or bottom of the ninth, Rob Dibble in his prime pitching, hit him. And I was like, wow, that took some balls. He just hung in there and wore one as a walk-off HBP, which was cool. That's it. And then some guys I worked with went on the Cubs cruise on Lake Michigan in 1995 on the Odyssey, and they were seated with Ray Sanchez and his girlfriend. Not his wife, but his girlfriend.
Wife was at home.
Yes. He had a wife, but that wasn't her.
Whoop.
So, yeah, Ray Sanchez, 92, 93, replaces Dunson. Jose Hernandez is starting to cycle in here. I know Juan de Yavis is, like I said, the nondescript Latino shortstops for a while. What do we got? 93, 94. We're kind of like just going through this phase. The post-Dunston malaise.
Ray played 7 years for the Cubs. He played 15 years overall.
Okay, all the way through like 97 or something.
His career slash line for the Cubs, 262, 304, 323. He was a good defensive shortstop and second baseman. He could not hit.
Good little player. He was a good little player.
He was acquired on January 3rd, 1990 from the Rangers for the great Brian House. Whoever that is.
Don't know. Is it Tom House's kid, maybe?
And when he was traded away on August 16th, 1997, it was to the Yankees for, I hope I typed this wrong. Otherwise, I do like it. I have Frisco Partite. I have a feeling it's like Francisco, but I like Frisco even better.
I like that too.
Ray's comps include number 2, Buck Weaver, Walt Weiss, Rafael Ramirez, TBS Superstation,
right? Ernie Johnson. Yep. Ernie Johnson probably said his name 33,000 times
all his games, in his career. And Craig Reynolds again. And by age, 31 and 32 seasons, Ryan Theriot. His 35 and 36 seasons, his teammate and sometime double play partner, Jose Vizcaíno.
There you go. Oh, Vizcaíno. I didn't even mention Vizcaíno. I mentioned Jose Hernandez. I mentioned Juan
Jose will get a lot of run in the second base one because of what he had to do when somebody retired out of nowhere.
That's right.
1998.
Oh, big free agent acquisition.
Jeff Blauser. He played 13 seasons overall, 11 for the Braves and 2 for the Cubs. The year before the Cubs acquired him, he was an all-star. He hit .308 with a .405 slug and a .482 or a .405 on base, .482 slug for the Braves with 17 homers and 70 RBIs. Before he came to the Cubs, he had played in 78 games as a Brave at Wrigley Field.
Against the Cubs. Oh, just at Wrigley Field.
299 plate appearances. His career slash line at Wrigley was 351, 413, 611 with 15 homers and 48 RBIs. It's basically a half season. So 30 homers and 96 RBIs.
Yeah. So
as a Cub,
1,000 OPS.
Jeff hit .219 with a .340 on base and a .299 slug with 4 homers and 26 RBIs in 1998. 1999, they made him a utility player. He played second, third, short, and left. And he had 240, 347, 420 with 9 homers and 26 RBIs in 104 games, and then he was gone.
Well, what contract did they sign him to? Is it just a 2-year deal then?
It was only 2 years.
They eat a year. Okay. And 98, it didn't bite him so much because they ditched him for Jose Hernandez was just earning the job. So yeah, he was a sunk cost. But that team made the playoffs with Blauser riding the pine, which was really disappointing. But yeah.
His number 1 comp, Robbie Thompson. Seems fitting. Number 2, Julio Lugo. 4, Alex Gonzalez, the Cub, not the Marlin. Number 9, Jason Kipnis, another Cub. And number 10, Davey Johnson.
Wow, who once hit 40 homers himself as a second baseman for the Braves in the early 70s.
Because for a while it was only him and Ryan that had ever done that, right?
He was, and when he did it, he was part of a quorum where 4 people had done. Darrell Evans and I forget who else, but anyway, maybe Hank Aaron.
1999, the shortstop who played the most games is Jose Hernandez. 15 seasons in the big leagues, 7 with the Cubs in 2 different stints. As a Cub for his career, we'll get to when him coming back ended up being very, very good. As a Cub, he had 253 with a 309 on base and a 438 slug, 23 homers and 71 RBIs in 1,790 at-bats.
And he was their trade chip that year, but they got nothing for him. That was the trade for Joey Nation, Will Oman, and God damn it. But that was the one chip.
It was
that Ed Lynch had.
Yeah, Jose Hernandez and Terry Mulholland for the Troika. The guys were going to remake the Cubs rotation.
Joey Nation.
Micah Bowie.
Yeah, who are they?
Ruben Quevedo. And Joey Nation.
Micah Bowie. Oh my God, they all made it too. They all pitched for the Cubs, and they were all fucking horrible. I'm surprised Andy Pratt wasn't part of that trade.
Jose was an all-star in 2002 for the Brewers, but he sat out games at the end of the season to avoid striking out 200 times. He struck out in 2001 and 2002. He struck out 185 and 188 times.
Yeah, and that's a stigma that is long since been blown up.
He was acquired in 1993 from the Indians for Heathcliff Slocum.
Ooh.
He came back in 2003, but he was quickly traded away. They got him in the Rock. They got him on June 20th. They got him from the Rockies for Mark Bellhorn.
Wow! Whoa!
And then, so a month and 3 days later, he was traded to the Pirates with Bobby Hill and Matt Brubeck for Kenny Lofton, Aramis Ramirez, and cash. And by far, the greatest thing Jose Hernandez ever did was get traded for Aramis Ramirez.
Oh, yeah. Certainly not Joey Nation and Micah Bowie.
His number 3 comp is one-time Cub killer Neil Walker.
Neil Walker, George Bush, yeah.
Number 4, Ricky Weeks. 7, Davey Johnson. 9, Jason Kipnis. And number 10, Javier Baez.
Ooh, ew. I don't know how I feel about that.
2000 and 2001, the shortstop was...
Ricky Gutierrez.
Ricky Gutierrez.
Yeah, not bad. He was fine.
He played 12 years in the big leagues, 2 with the Cubs. He signed as a free agent before the 2000 season after 5 years with the Astros.
Yeah,
he had been with the Rockies, right? That's why Don Baylor wanted him. Everybody the Cubs got in 2000 were guys who had played for Don before, like Eric Young. In his Cub career, he hit 284 with a 359 on base and a 401 slug with 21 homers and 122 RBIs. They were the 2 best offensive seasons of his career.
Is that right?
He led the National League in sacrifice bunts in both 2000 and 2001 because every time Eric Young got on, Don had him bunt.
The first inning. I swear to God, I know it sounds like a trope. I know I'm probably exaggerating. So I'm not going to just sit here and say it happened 100 times. It happened a lot. First inning of a game, Eric Young had we talked about this, and we'll talk about it again when we do second base, but Eric Young had a really good 2000 season for the Cubs, and the Cubs sucked. And then in 2001, he sucked, and the Cubs were good, and they could have used the good Eric Young. But what I remember in 2000, he seemed to get on base all the time to start a game. And every game, with 27 outs in front of you, Don Baylor would just willingly give up the first out of the game in the first inning by having Gutierrez bunt Eric Young to second base. Happened at least, I'm going to say honestly, at least 12 times, which is 12 times too many to ever happen in the first inning of a fucking game.
That was...
probably happened 30 times, now that I think about it.
Who was the guy? Was it their shortstop? Who was the guy that Jim Leland always had bunt?
Nico Lean?
Shit, it's like from the 93, maybe 92 Pirates. It was the same shit. J Bell. Yep.
Was it really?
Yep.
He was good. He was a good hitter. I mean, you just waste. I mean, I don't have to tell you. It's not Gutierrez is a great hitter, but you're just giving an out is all you're doing.
All right. In 1990 and 1991, J. Bell led the National League in sacrificed bunts with 39 and 30. Those are ridiculous.
Wow. That's 10%. That's 10% of your plate appearances.
It's terrible baseball, is what it is.
It is. It really is.
Ricky suffered my all-time favorite Cub injury when, in 2000, he ended up missing over 30 games. While running to first base, he pulled his hamstring. He fell down and he separated his shoulder.
Yep. And then, of course, Ricky, we have to mention this because it's all part of it, and we haven't convened since Steve McMichael passed us away. Right. Ricky was very much central to the drama that night in July of 2001. Most remembered for Steve McMichael's hilarious seventh inning stretch conductor appearance, but just the game itself was bonkers, and Ricky very much in the center of it at the end. So
his comps include the great Gary DiSarcina and Kurt Stillwell.
I'm loving the names tonight, man.
2002 to 2004.
2002. Oh, well, our guy, Alex Gonzalez.
Why didn't I remember this? He was acquired on December 10th, 2001 from the Blue Jays in a trade
for a pitcher.
Jim DeShane and Felix Heredia. Somebody traded for Felix Heredia.
The run fairy after he had already blown up the 2001 season. So in 2002, Alex Gonzalez, honestly, I mean, this is going to sound ironic, and everyone likes to pile on him, so it alleviates their guilt about blaming Bartman, but he was a very excellent shortstop defensively, very sure-handed. However, what he seemed to have a knack for, especially in 2002, his first year, because he did it at least three times, walk-off home run. He did it in 2003 a couple times also. But he did it a bunch of times in 2002.
He did more. In 2003, he had 5. He had more walk-offs in 2003 than Ernie Banks had in his career. Ernie had 4.
Yeah, he was clutch. I thought he had it more in 2002. Okay. So but he wasn't known, but he wasn't otherwise known for his offense. He was a
frustrating player because he should have been a better offensive player than he was. Like, he had all the tools to be a very
clutch power.
He drove the Blue Jays nuts, and then he drove the Cubs nuts. But the one thing you could always rely on was he was a good defensive shortstop until the 8th inning of Game 6. When Steve Bartman, honestly, Steve Bartman bailed him out forever. Because his fuck up was far worse than Bartman slapping the ball away from.
Except for the fact that if Bartman doesn't go for the ball and Luke catches it, Gonzalez doesn't have to go for 2. He doesn't have to try to hurry. That
ends the inning. He throws first and the inning's over.
Well, and the other thing is, who is Alex Gonzalez's comp in that situation? But my favorite player, Leon Durham, also an excellent defensive player. Just fucking, physical errors fucking happen to the best of them. He was a great shortstop and a clutch hitter, and you're right, he was frustrating as a hitter. Should have been better, and I think it all had to be in his own fucking head because it's like he is the same guy that got hit by a pitch and broke his wrist, but did not take first base.
Yeah, that was in 2004.
How does that happen? How do you let that happen? How do you you broke your wrist and you're looking at the umpire saying, no,
he broke his forearm,
put a grip,
which should have made even more noise.
Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yeah, if people don't know,
okay, Mr. Fleming.
He check swing.
Go bad again.
He check swing. Clearly did not swing. Ball hit him in the forearm. I'll call it a foul ball because he heard it. And Alex is pointing at his arm, and he finished the at bat, and then he went on the injured list with a broken arm, which cleared the way for a trade later. But anyway, we got to get to that.
Because you said it happened in 2004. Yeah.
He played 13 years in the big leagues, 8 for the Blue Jays, 3 for the Cubs. Overall for the Cubs, 235, 297, 411 in 331 games. He had 41 homers, 121 RBIs. In 2003, he hit 228, but he hit 20 homers and 59 RBIs.
What year?
In 2003. In the 2003 playoffs, he hit 250 with 357 on base and a 500 slug in the NLDS against the Braves with a homer. In the NLCS, he hit 286 with a 333 on base and a 679 slug with 3 homers and 7 RBIs. And what he's remembered for is the double play grounder that he fucked.
Yeah, and he should be because, God damn it, just at least get one. But again,
he was traded on July 31st, 2004, with Francis Beltran and Brendan Harris to the Expos. So that was it. Nope. The Twins sent Doug Minkiewicz to the Red Sox. The Red Sox sent Nomar Garciaparra and Matt Merton to the Cubs. The Expos sent Orlando Cabrera to the Red Sox, and the Cubs sent Justin Jones to the Twins. Alex Gonzalez's comps include number 3, Jeff Blauser. Number 4, Alexi Ramirez. Number 5, Dansby Swanson. And my favorite, number 7, the other Alex Gonzalez, who we played against in those plays.
They were opposing shortstops in the LCS.
2004, after the trade, Nomar Garciaparra hit .297 with a .364 on base, a .455 slug with 4 homers and 20 RBIs. He re-signed for the 2005 season and ripped his groin right off, which cleared the field for the guy who clearly is going to be 1A with Ernie Banks. Correct. 2005, Neffy Perez. He was acquired on August. So how about this? Neffy gets waived by the Giants on August 17th, 2004. He signs with the Cubs because the Cubs need shortstop insurance behind Nomar. Right. In 67 at-bats for the 04 Cubs, Neffy hit .371 with a 400 on base and a .548 slug with 2 homers and 6 RBIs in 67 at-bats.
And this is the guy that was already a legend in Cubs lore when he helped drag in, a very problematic Cubs team in '98 into the playoffs by hitting a unlikely homer off of Rob Nett. So he's already like him.
Neffy's an all-timer. Neffy deserves a special plaque in the Utility Hall of Fame. Nomar gets hurt.
He does.
Neffy takes over at short, and in April, Neffy hits .368 with a .403 on base and a .559 slug with 3 homers and 12 RBIs. He hit a grand slam in Busch Stadium on Sunday Night Baseball to beat the Cardinals. Overall, in 2005, he hit .274 with a .298 on base, a .383 slug with 9 homers and 54 RBIs. Nomar, when he came back, played third base because he couldn't knock Neffy off short. Actually, it's because with half a groin, they thought maybe Nomar should just play third. Neffy got hot late in the year, not that it mattered, in 05. And in August, he hit .347, .388, .480 with a homer and 6 RBIs. He got traded on August 20th, 2006 to the Tigers for Chris Robinson, best known as the frontman for the band The Black Crowes. Oh, wait, maybe it's different, Chris Robinson. He flunked an amphetamine test not long after that and got banned, got suspended for the rest of the season. Good job, Neffy. Neffy's comps include Jack Wilson, Rafael Ramirez, and the great Dickie Thon.
It's the first Jack Wilson reference, the buck-toothed bastard.
Yeah.
Around the same time. Yeah, and
his kid's actually a pretty good player for the A's. Jacob.
Oh, I didn't know that was his kid.
Jack's kid. He's everything Jack wasn't. He actually hits.
They had not to like make a diversion, but they had Jack Wilson. They also had Craig Wilson. I remember about those Pirates. He was the mullet-haired,
curly mullet.
Yeah,
Craig A. Wilson. He was Craig A. Wilson.
Not to be confused with Craig T. Nelson. Oh, wait.
2006, the one and only year that Cubs prospect Ronnie Cedeno got the majority of games at shortstop. Ronnie played 10 years in the big leagues, 4 for the Cubs. He got to play on some Pirates teams that weren't trying, so they were happy with it.
Good for Ronnie. He's fully
in 2006, pensioned. Ronnie was worth minus 1.7 WAR in 151 games. You would have literally been better off just picking a random baseball player off the street and playing him than Ronnie. He slashed .245, .271, .339 with 6 homers and 41 RBIs. He struck out 109 times and walked 17 times. His entire 4 Cubs seasons, he amassed a total of minus 1.6 WAR.
And I know it's been said before. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say his most famous moment, April 20th, 2007. In the 9th inning of a game, the Cubs were losing 2-1. Mark DeRosa led off with a single. Ronnie pinch ran for him. On a full count, and I got to give Ronnie credit. I would have been shocked by this too. On a full count, he was running, and Jock Jones walked. Cardinals catcher Yadier Molina didn't wait to hear if it was a strike or a ball. He threw to second. It was a ball 4. Ronnie could go to second. Ronnie overslid second base and got tagged out. He was out going from first to second on a walk.
Yep.
Matt Merton popped out.
I remember.
Cubs lose.
That's like the Kennedy. It's like the Kennedy assassination, because I remember I had left work on Friday because it was happy hours at the Shamrock Club on Kinsey Street, across from the Merchandise Mart, and Chicago Alderman Danny Solis, who has been in the news for more problematic things more recently, was at the bar and very confused about why Cedeno, almost as confused as Ronnie. And the one thing I want to say about Ronnie too is that, like, after the game, he still didn't understand it, because his quote was, "Well, I guess they changed the rules or something." Like, kind of petulantly, like, "I didn't do anything wrong."
I remember
rules.
I remember watching it, and I'm like, "Oh fuck, he's out." I was just like, I know he's out. He went right past. He completely went over the bag, and he's being tagged out by.
He was legally entitled to second base at the moment the ball crossed home plate, and the umpire ruled it a ball. Yep. So that's his claim to fame.
Ronnie was traded on January 20th, 2009, with Garrett Olson to Seattle for Aaron Heileman. Cubs were going to go.
Oh, the Notre Dame,
6 foot.
Our friend Mike. I remember our friend Mike Brott, Notre Dame grad himself. I remember pointing that out. Aaron Heileman was a Notre Dame pitcher.
The Cubs had a lot of great Notre Dame pitchers: Jeff Samardzija, Pierce Johnson.
Correct, Pierce Johnson, right? Which is just the most painful sentence in human history.
Ronnie's number 1 comp, Andre Rogers.
Yeah, okay. That loops back, because I think Ronnie was Andre's.
Because Ronnie flopped so spectacularly, the Cubs had to turn a second base prospect into a shortstop. He didn't have the arm for it. He was dumb and a terrible base runner. He played 8 years in the big leagues and 6 for the Cubs. 2007, 2009, your shortstop, Ryan Theriot.
Mm-hmm.
In 2008, Ryan Theriot hit .307 with a .387 on base and a .359.
2008.
He hit 1 homer, 38 RBIs, and he stole 22 bases and 35 attempts, which is about right.
That's why Lou batted him second and put Fukudome at 8th. Playoffs.
In 2009, he hit .284 with a .343 on base and a .369 slug, with 7 homers and 54 RBIs. What got into little Ryan?
Yeah, he was a little productive there, I guess, in fairness.
He had 6 hits, including 1 RBI and a stolen base in the Cubs' 2 playoff flameouts in 2007 and 2008.
And was one of the same assholes that made an error that inning, where every infielder made an error.
His error and
was the most egregious.
His error in the second inning of Game 2 of the NLDS against the Dodgers, when he tried to field a grounder with his hand instead of his glove, was the first of 4 by the Cubs. He was running to second to cover, right, and the ball was hit. And instead of just turning and backhanding the ball, he stuck his bare hand out and fumbled it. And in the Cubs, every infielder would end up making an error.
Correct.
And Carlos Zambrano should have assassinated all.
Somehow Carlos Zambrano did not just like spontaneously combust. He kept his cool, believe it. I remember he was just like, Carlos would just be up Todd Walker's ass for not catching a pop-up in shallow right field. And every infielder shit the tub in that inning. And Carlos was just like, all right, man, I guess this is what the fuck is going on. So
the acronym TOOTBLAN, TOOTBLAN, thrown out on the bases like a nincompoop, was practically, if not literally, invented for Ryan Theriot.
I've always taken it to be literal. Whatever nerds came up with that they were targeting Theriot.
He did it a lot, because it wasn't just the caught stealings. He was just a terrible base runner, like completely unaware on the bases. Just
trying to take third with nobody out. Yeah. Only 1 or 2 outs. Yeah.
He was traded at the deadline in 2010 with Ted Lilly to the Dodgers for Kyle Smith, Brett Wallach, and Blake DeWitt.
Oh, don't tell our buddy Oleg about the Blake DeWitt. Tends to trigger him. And who was the one before Blake DeWitt? Is that a son of?
Yeah, Brett Wallach.
Who did you?
Tim's kids, right?
Tim Wallach. Yeah, not Eli Wallach, not the actor.
No.
But Tim Wallach, yeah, the Cub Killer, actually. Tim Wallach. He was a Cub Killer.
Maybe not.
I think it is. I think because I think I had heard that one before.
Well, it doesn't have son of. Let's see, Tim Wallach.
Okay, maybe
Chad.
not.
Chad Wallach.
Maybe it
was Tim's kid.
I don't know who that is. Okay, right.
Chad Wallach was a catcher for the Marlins, the Reds, the Angels.
And maybe he is the late actor Eli Wallach's
Brett
son
Wallach.
The Deep.
Never got above high A ever.
Okay. Oh. Okay.
2010 to 2015. Starlin.
Wait.
DeJesus.
Yeah. Right.
Castro. Do you know that?
That's his middle name?
DeJesus. Only we didn't know. Starlin was a 4-time All-Star, 3 times as a Cub, 2011, 2012, 2014. He led the National League in hits in 2001 with 207. He hit 300, 347, 408 as a rookie. He had a triple and a homer in his big league debut, May 7th in Cincinnati. He finished 5th in Rookie of the Year voting in 2010 behind Buster Posey. Is Buster Posey really better than Starlin Castro?
Kind of won the World Series that year.
Yeah. And Buster's going to the Hall of Fame. Jason Hayward, Jaime Garcia, and Gabby Sanchez, the Marlin.
Okay. Yeah. They all.
In 2012, Starlin stole a career-high 25 bases, and he led the National League in caught stealings with 30. It was 2012. Nobody was paying any attention.
It's not 1920s bad, but that's not good. Certainly not in 2020.
In 2011 and 2012 combined, he stole 47 bases, and he never stole more than 6 in a season after that. He's like, all right, that's enough of that shit. I'm not running anymore.
You mentioned the debut. That's probably the most prolific debut by a Cubs shortstop. Because I remember driving to Michigan that weekend and just listening to Ron Santo lose his shit. It was.
Well, and it was. But he was replacing Terrio. Thank God.
Yeah, I remember at one point thinking that, man, Ronnie Cedeno might be one of these guys that gets to 3,000 hits, but you're not sure if he's a Hall of Famer. But then he kind of sabotaged his career, much in the way Addison Russell did. I feel like in some smaller ways. Because he was, like you mentioned it, compared him to Dunson, they swung a lot, but he was a great bad ball hitter. He didn't draw a lot of walks. He's a good hitter.
Well, he was an all-star as late as 2014 with the Yankees.
Was he really?
Yep.
2014? No,
not 2014. 2016. The year the Cubs went to World Series. He was an all-star with the Yankees.
Okay. Yeah. He ran into more issues, though, a few years ago, but I thought if he could almost get 180 hits a year because he started so young. He was like a 20-year-old when he came up. It was either like him or, God, I can't think of the guy's name. Baltimore player around the time the Cubs, Nick Markakis. Like a guy that almost realistically finished with 3,000 hits, but you'd never think it was a Hall of Fame. But if Starlin got to 3,000 hits, then people make the case. He played Midland Field, played shortstop, but he was a decent shortstop, right? He wasn't as good as Russell or Baez.
Starlin hit 281, 321, 404, and 891 games as a Cub. He was benched on August 7th, 2015 for poor defense at short while hitting just 236, 271, 304. He returned to the lineup as a second baseman 7 days later, and he hit 353, 374, 590, 594 with 6 homers and 23 RBIs over the final 44 games of the season.
I think credit goes to Joe Madden there, by the way, just for managing that whole situation and getting that out of him. Because he was useless. I remember I was despondent. That was the 2015 team that was on the rise.
Yeah.
And the kids were coming. That was Bryant's rookie of the year season. And, Baez came up after the All-Star break, but Soler, was on the team. And it was just come on, Starlin, get it going. For 2 months, his OPS was it dipped under 600. And then Madden did it. And then within a couple weeks, he reemerged and coaxed some real production out of him down the stretch. He was very much a contributor to the team that went to the playoffs and advanced. So
he hit 286, 333, 500 with a homer in the NLDS win over the Cardinals. He was one of 6 Cubs to homer, each lineup spot from 1 to 6 in Game 3. He was traded to the Yankees on December 8th, 2015 for Adam Warren. Warren was later traded back to the Yankees with Gleyber Torres, Billy McKinney, and Rashad Crawford for a Roldis chap.
Worth noting that, we've gone over 100 years of Cubs shortstops, and now we're at this point where they have this veritable bevy of shortstops. Because you mentioned Gleyber Torres too, who's still playing. He's not a shortstop anymore, but so you had Castro, you had Russell. You haven't even mentioned Russell yet, but or Baez, but Cubs had all of a sudden we were filthy with shortstops, shortstop prospects.
2016 to 2019, Addison Russell played 5 years in the big leagues, all with the Cubs. He was acquired in a trade on July 5th, 2014 from the A's with Billy McKinney and Dan Strahler for Jason Hamill and Jeff Samardzija. He debuted as a second baseman April 21st, 2015 in Pittsburgh, 4 days after Chris Bryant debuted against the Padres. They were actually going to debut on the same day, but Mike Olt broke his thumb and pushed up Chris Bryant's debut by a series.
In Coors Stadium when that happened, yeah. And right away, I'm like, Bryant's coming up.
Addison hit 242, 307, 398 as a rookie with 13 homers and 54 RBIs. He was an all-star in 2016. He hit 238 with a 321 on base and 417 slug with 21 homers and 95 RBIs. He drove in 9 runs in the 2016 World Series, including 6 in Game 6. He's tied with Andrew Jones and Mickey Mantle as the youngest players ever to hit World Series Grand Slams. He's alleged to have abused the mothers of both of his children. One of the women accused him of paying his monthly child support in quarters and dollar bills. His career with the Cubs ended after the 2019 season. He missed 16 games late in that season after being hit in the head in Milwaukee by Adrian Hauser. The Cubs had run out of shortstops by that time and had to call Nico Horner up off the couch to make his major league debut. He had lost his shortstop job to Javi Baez in 2019 and was playing mostly second base. His comps: number 1, Andahar Cedeno. Number 5, Stephen Vogt, the catcher who now manages Cleveland. Jeremy Pena, a former World Series MVP, and Bobby Crosby.
So, first thing is I'm going to say that I felt he was such a good second baseman when he got called up that he would, in my book, he was in contention to be in the Gold Glove discussion in 2015. But then Joe moved him to shortstop, and he was fine. He was a really good shortstop, and the hitting was secondary. But then the playoffs, he got hurt, and that's when Baez finished the shortstop. Now, you said that Baez took over 2019, but was Baez not the runner-up MVP to Christian Yelich in 2018 as a shortstop, or do I have that? Was Baez the everyday? I feel like Russell wasn't the shortstop for that
Javi played more games at second base than shortstop in 2018.
All right. So he was their second baseman in 2018 when he was the MVP runner-up.
Well, he played a fair amount of shortstop, but he played more at
because
second.
Russell was already starting to creak. And the other thing about Russell is I'm going to say, Theo kind of acknowledged this. Sometimes you speak to the fact that you draft a young superstar and you ignore warning signs.
Yep.
And I kind of feel like when Addison Russell was drafted, he was already a 2-time baby daddy, and he was like 18. And I kind of just feel like all that behavior that you just sort of alluded to in the law, and how like paying the alimony and then other things that had come out through the years, just didn't really have any sort of maturity. He looked like he had it together. He was like a solid looking kid. He's a great athlete. He came across well in the media, even though he didn't go to college. So I think it was easy for people to look past a lot of that stuff, but he was obviously just like, a narcissist or whatever. He was just a very flawed individual, and he was not able to really grow and either deal with it and stay on the baseball diamond. He never. Usually, those guys, it seems like they have a second act.
Like you flame out with the Cubs, and he went to Mexico for a couple of years, and usually you're talented enough, somebody gives you another chance. He never got another chance ever.
No,
nobody wanted to touch him. They're like, no, we're not fucking around.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty toxic because you look at and then you look back, you're like, Jesus, look at the mess you're creating. You got kids all over the place. You don't give a shit, and you're treating this, you're just like, and then you said that he had 95 RBIs. 26. Did you see it at 230? He ended up with a 231 batting average that year.
238.
Did I hear that right?
Yep.
I mean, yeah, he got on base. He played great shortstop. But I was like, okay. I mean,
he's an all-star because he got the whole Cub infield got voted in.
Got voted in. Yeah. So maybe it wasn't even meant to be to begin with, but we were very much salivating early on that trade, and then he was called up, and he really was a very fluid defender, and then he would have big hits. So and he was just part of this whole group of just young players, not just great defensive players, but he also had Schwarber and like I said, Soler, Bryant, Baez. Castro was still kind of on the fringe of that age group, and so very exciting time briefly, and then it was gone. Not before they won a World Series. So there you go.
2019 to 2021, Javier Baez. Javi has played 12 years in the big leagues, and he played 8 for the Cubs. He was drafted as a shortstop and broke in as one, but after coming up, he broke in as one after coming up late in 2014, but he didn't.
Castro got hurt late in 2014, and Baez got to play short. He came up as a second baseman again, I think.
He didn't play more games at short in a season than either second or third until 2019. He won the Gold Glove. He won the Gold Glove at short in 2020. He was a 2-time All-Star with the Cubs. He's the 2016 NLCS co-MVP. He won a Silver Slugger in 2018, finished second in MVP voting, led the National League in RBI in 2018 and strikeouts in 2021 when he was traded to the Mets with Trevor Williams for Pete Crow Armstrong. He averaged .262, .303, .474 for the Cubs with 140 homers and 443 RBIs in 815 games. He was worth 21.8 WAR for the Cubs. His comps are Brian Dozier, Dansby Swanson, Jose Hernandez, and Gene Tennis. I love the Gene Tennis one.
That tracks.
That's just
such a ridiculous.
Just what you think when you think of
section.
Javi Baez is Gene
because
Tennis.
Andy, he's hard to define.
Yeah,
and I'm sitting here listening to you like, rattle this off, and now like in retrospect, it kind of blows me away that he's like he never really was a shortstop for that long, but I thought of him as such. He did so many things in jest, or maybe not, in tongue in cheek, or maybe not. Like you wrote the article the other day about the quarter century the Cubs team, and you had Baez at second and short and utility, and I think it's tongue in cheek, but after talking about him, it's like he doesn't fit anywhere, but he fits everywhere. Like he was so. I can't even really articulate it or put my finger on it.
Well,
he was the best second baseman. Like I thought in the 2015 team, he was their best third baseman. Even when Russell was the everyday shortstop, I would say my hot take was Baez is a better shortstop. I'm not saying Baez should be the shortstop. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you put him there, he's a better shortstop than Russell. But it's almost like you just want to have him to put anywhere you need him, and he's going to be the best player at that position, third, short, or second.
I think
center.
I think his best position was second base. I think he was an incredible second baseman.
Sandberg-esque.
And he was a great third baseman. And
he was.
And
he made some plays at third. I saw one in Philadelphia in person, 5 rows behind the dugout on a bunt. It was at third base. And that was in 2015.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they would. Did I write about this, or was I just telling somebody about it? But when they would, it's in the book. I'm writing little side notes.
Gotta save it
in the book.
Gotta save it for the book.
But the Cubs, when he would play third base in 2016, especially the second half of the season, he played third base whenever John Lester pitched. And whenever the Cubs thought somebody was going to bunt, you had looked up and you had Anthony Rizzo standing 20 feet away from you, daring you to hit the ball at him. Just swing away, see if he can get it past me. And Javi playing about halfway, knowing that if you bunted anywhere near him, he would swoop in and grab it, and the runner was going to be out at second base.
Ground. Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And teams basically stopped trying to bunt on John Lester because Rizzo and Javi had just taken it away. Like,
that was one of the few ways you could beat him otherwise.
But honestly, as jokey as it was that I put him at second, short, and utility, he's the best choice at all 3 spots.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, Javi's a better second baseman than Nico.
Yes.
He was the shortstop on the team. And then as much as we love Ben Zobrist, Javi did everything. Javi could play literally every position on the field better than Ben Zobrist could play any of them. It's
Absolutely.
just, and it's no slant.
He's playing center field right now for the Tigers, doing some shit.
Well, he's actually playing all over, and Dave tells a story on the pod this week. They were in Kansas City, so he went. And he said, Javi doesn't take ground balls. He just shags ball, and then they'll like, Javi got to play third today. Okay. But he was joking with AJ Hinch said he was joking. He played Javi at second. Javi in the dugout was like, I hope nobody hits the ball at me. I'm not ready. And it is like, yeah, we know that's not true. Like you could put him at any spot. In 2016, Rizzo got hurt and Javi played first. I didn't know that. I read it. I reread it.
I remember that.
He'd never played it before, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's really good at it." Like, of course he's really. You could literally just give him any glove and send him out.
I believe you pointed out in a recent podcast that he was the emergency catcher, even while
but he never got to
was
do
on
it.
the roster.
Right, and he never got to do it. I would love to have seen that because I know he'd have been good at it.
It transcends this discussion. He's certainly deserving of the discussion of shortstop, but like he's such a unique player. Truly, I'm still trying to grasp it all.
Well, and he was like. He was so good at all the little, like, he was, it sounds stupid, but we saw it and saw how valuable it was. He's the best tagger ever. Like,
slider, yeah.
He got guys out that should not have been out. Because
tag and slide.
And, then
both
conversely,
of those are,
you couldn't tag him out. Like, he would.
Correct.
And so, like, there's a 5-minute video about Javi's tags, and there's a 7-minute video on him just running the bases.
He had a way of just letting the ball hang in the air without letting it hit the runner and just catch it while he's touching the runner.
That's why he was so good. Because it slows you down to reach out, grab the ball, and try to come back to tag it. Javi was always confident enough. He'd put the glove right where the ball needed to go, and he would just adjust to it if he had to.
I don't know. You can't teach that. I coach. I don't know how you can teach that.
Yeah. And then just some of the like heads up stuff he would do on the field. Like I talked about this on another pod where. You always think in hindsight, like, oh, the shortstop should have trapped that, and then he could have started a double play. Javi would do it. I mean, he's still doing it. Like he's, yeah, the Tigers just put him wherever the hell they need him. Now, he's a ridiculously overpaid utility player, but you've got him, and that's the best use of him.
They're the best team in baseball,
and they're doing it. So
yeah,
there's a reason why
he somehow gets this honorable mention. It's never going to be more. No one's going to surpass Ernie at this position here. That's probably clear. But like, he's got to be mentioned, even though he, as you said, didn't even play. He was never the regular shortstop for more than like 2 full seasons. Right. Somehow.
The the Cubs have gotten a lot of shit wrong over the last few years, but they did somehow manage to trade our favorite player for our favorite player. I mean, that's pretty good.
We have to revisit the center field discussion.
If you're going to trade Javi Baez and you get Pete Crow Armstrong in return, we can live with that.
Yeah.
As much as we miss Javi,
like continuation.
It's pretty incredible.
Exactly right. Yeah, no regrets.
2022, the shortstop was Nico Horner.
Oof.
Nico was injured at the trade deadline in 2021, so he didn't take over short after the Javi trade until September 19th. But in 2022, he got to play shortstop. He slashed .281, .327, .410 with a career-high 10 homers and 55 RBIs with 20 stolen bases in 22 attempts. He moved to second base in 2023 when the Cubs signed Dansby Swanson. Now, here's the stat that's going to blow your hair back, even yours. Despite playing more than twice as many games at second, 392, than at shortstop, 196, Nico has more homers while playing short, 16, than he does at second, 13. I'm telling you, that's where his power went. They have to put him back at shortstop so he can start hitting home runs again.
More like an Ernie Banks.
His comps are Alex Cintrone, Jeff Treadway, Kevin Newman, and Andres Jimenez. But by age, he has 3 good age 27 comps. Brian Roberts, Joe Panic, and Bump Wills. He's a better player than everybody except for Brian Roberts was a good player, as Jim Hendry will tell you.
Brian Roberts was a should have been Cub, and just they couldn't pull it off.
No, they couldn't get the Orioles interested until Brian got the concussions and couldn't play. And then the Orioles were actually interested in trading him, and Jim Hendry's like, "Yeah, I don't want the guy with the scrambled brain. Sorry."
Well, good for Jim. It's like maybe what about Eric Bedard? Can I take him? No, sorry.
And then 2023 till now, Dansby Swanson, 10 big league seasons. He spent 3 with the Cubs. With the Braves, he slashed .255, .321, .417. With the Cubs, he has slashed .243, .317, .408. He's at 49.
Against all odds is actually having the offensive season that you would have really desperately expected in the first couple of years. right?
After having
it can still tail off.
After having a terrible stretch where they had to demote him to 8th in the lineup. But yeah, he's been very good since then.
Correct.
Won the Gold Glove in 2022 with Atlanta and 2023 with the Cubs. And the thing I will always say about Dansby is that I knew he was a good defensive shortstop when they got him. He's a better defensive shortstop than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
And the thing he does that fascinates me is no matter who the runner is, he will always find a way to throw that guy out by one step. He throws the ball just hard enough to always get you.
Trio?
To always get you by. But he doesn't even do it, obviously, like Manny, where Manny was holding it and looking. He just knows how hard to throw the ball to first.
And clutching.
And I thought it was really, a big play over the weekend, I guess on Sunday was, with the Cubs up 1-0, he beat out a routine ground ball to Ellie De La Cruz.
Yes.
That would not have happened, even though Ellie is super fast, that would not have happened the other way around. If Ellie hit that ball to Dansby, he's out. Dansby hit it to Ellie and he was safe.
Yeah.
He's a nice player. In free agency, the guys are very rarely worth what you pay for him. He's not worth the amount they're paying, but I'm glad they have him because he's a good player.
Yeah.
Comps are Didi Gregorius, Cubs, Alex Gonzalez, Javi Baez, Jeff Blauser, and Willie Adames.
Didi Gregorius is one of those players Bill James had pointed out. If you have a player whose first name and last name are both unique, that's all I got on Didi. Every time I hear Didi Gregorius' name, that's what I think. Him and Ugueth Urbina. Nobody with that first name or last name ever in baseball.
All right. So I had a very tough time figuring out my top 5.
Yeah.
But I have them.
I wonder.
Do you have yours, or do you just want to hear mine first?
Yeah, I want to hear yours because it wouldn't prejudice me. It might give me some context because I'm still sorting it out here. The bias thing's blowing my head.
My number one, shockingly, is Ernie Banks. I know, way out on a limb. I took Ernie Banks. He's the best shortstop in Cub history.
Billy Williams in left field, right? It hasn't been that easy.
Then it gets tough. Here's what I went with 2, 3, 4, and 5. I went with Javi Baez, number 2.
All right.
I went with Starlin Castro, number 3. I went with Sean Dunston, number 4, and Don Kessinger, number 5. I figure 6 Gold Gloves for Don should get him on the list.
I'm kicking out Kessinger. Jurgis had a 28.5 WAR, and he lived in every bit of the era of expected weak need offensive production from shortstops that Kessinger did. And he also got shot, Andy. So I'm
gets extra bonus points. Bonus points for taking a bullet.
I'm factoring that in. I'm skipping over Lenny Murillo. Castro Dunston, man, I think you're showing that you're really trying to be impartial, but not putting Dunston, because I actually might put Dunston ahead of Castro.
Mm-hmm.
Castro, you said he had 200 hit season with the Cubs. Castro did.
Yep.
I think you mentioned that. Okay, which is rare. Sandberg was the first person to do that in my lifetime. That didn't happen again until Juan Pierre cheated his way to 700 plate appearances to do it, and then apparently Castro did it after that. So I don't know. And he was an all-star. I'm just to be contrarian, I'm going to put Dunston ahead of Castro. I just feel funny putting Baez at second. Russell was the World Series shortstop, but he was also a shitheel, so he's gone. He was only there for a couple of years. Dansby's only been there 3 years recently. Some of those 19th century douchebags, just even for those eras, don't really do it. Joe Tinker's gone. He's in there for, I think obviously Ernie, the Baez it too. It's just weird. Baez almost merits a whole separate podcast.
Well, it's funny when I had him at second and short on the All Century team. I got a pretty good idea that when we do the second baseman, he's going to be in the top 5 of that too.
Right, he's right. He's like him and Sandberg. Like we've been blessed at second base. So, yeah, I guess I don't know what order I'd put it in. I'm just going to kick off Kessinger and put shotgun Bill Jurgis in there. And I can't quarrel.
Where's Joe Tinker? He's in the Hall of Fame.
Him out. I think overrated.
How could he not have him on the list? He's in the Hall of Fame. None of these other guys other than Ernie are going in the Hall of Fame.
Propaganda. Yeah, no, it's he sounded like a really good shortstop. So was Jurgis, though. Jurgis had 20. I didn't see what Tinker's WAR was, and I do wonder.
I mean, it was a different sport.
I don't have the brain to even really understand some of the nuances between us. Shit, Joe Tinker has a 53.2 WAR.
I have no problem with a Cub team that went to the World Series in 6, 7, 8, and 10 having their second baseman, shortstop, and first baseman in the Hall of Fame. That's fine. They clearly were good.
Let's face it. In any context, a shortstop is your best infielder. It's a very good It's a very good baseball player, even if he can't hit. So you start with that. If you got a World Series team, so I guess I'll reconsider it, and take Bill Jurgis and his shotgun wound and pick him back up.
It wasn't a shotgun. It was a 25. It was a 25 caliber pistol.
Right,
but she somehow got 3 shots off, and one of them hit her.
By Paul Popovich's grandma. All right, yeah, I'm fine with yours. I'll assent to it, and I'll leave him.
We don't have to agree.
No, I know, and we haven't in the past. It doesn't make much difference, and my takeaway is just what an incredible player Javier Baez is, because he didn't even play as much shortstop as I seem to have remembered, because he was doing crazy, awesome shit everywhere else on the diamond.
Yeah, I wish I could break it down. I don't know. Because he played shortstop. You look at his baseball reference page now. I thought he was the everyday
I assumed he was the everyday shortstop in that MVP runner-up here, but Russell was still there.
Well, let's look at that one and see how many games he played. I know he didn't play the majority, but how many he played at?
But even that, even in his peak, that was kind of like Chris Bryant. These guys were okay to move around and play different positions. That's kind of what speaks a little bit to Joe Madden's managerial expertise. To
2018, he played 104 games at second, 65 at short, and 22 at third, and 1 at first. Just for the hell of it. And then 2019, he played 129 at short, and then 2020, he played 56 of the 60 games.
Because Russell was gone. So Russell wasn't really gone until he continued to fuck up. So Baez's year, he was basically having an MVP year, and he was basically just the middle infielder.
But I wonder, I'm going to look. I think the reason we think he was I think by the end of the season he was.
Yes.
Well, he was, right? 18 was the year they had to Addison. They suspended him.
I guess it was.
Then I think they gave him a phony thing. They had to trade for Daniel Murphy. So Javi was playing shortstop. And Javi hurt his foot, right? He didn't finish. He was limping down the end.
That was 2019. No, that was 2019.
What was the year where all of a sudden we looked up and Mike Freeman's playing shortstop in an important game? Because Nico was doing it the year later.
In the coin flip game, what did I say that we had? There was something wrong here 2 years after the World Series, where in a coin flip game at Wrigley Field, I'm sitting in my seat going, we've got Daniel Murphy at second and David Bodie at third. Yeah. Something has gone wrong here. We just won a World Series 2 years ago, and we need to stay alive. And Daniel Murphy's at second, is at the keystone. David Bodie's at the hot corner. So yeah, Baez was firmly the shortstop by money time in 2018. His MVP runner-up season and all of 2019. So I guess it just took, I guess in my memory, it just took longer to get Russell off of short than I thought.
In 2018, he basically played short, either started or played part of a game at short, because he played a lot of starting it and then went to second every game for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So by the middle of August, he was the shortstop.
Yeah.
But he'd been the second baseman up before then.
Yeah. Okay. Hell of an MVP runner-up season. I just love him, and I look forward to talking second base, because we could talk more about Javier Baez. So
Cubs get to see him this week. Going to Detroit. All right. Well, it was fun. These are all good.
It was. Shortstop. Not as bad as third base and center field. Actually, yeah.
No, but really it's Ernie, and then it's the it doesn't really start again until you get to Starlin.
Right. You're right.
There's a big gap.
You're right. Yeah, and I don't want to totally denigrate Ivan Jesus, our first, and Sean.
Yeah, Ivan was a better player than I gave him credit for.
Ivan was a cut above the average shortstop of those times, and so was Sean. So we actually, I think, it's almost a sliding scale comparatively with the rest of the league. Shortstop's not a position we can complain about too much, I would say. That's my takeaway.
I mean, my takeaways are, I didn't realize just how terrible Larry Bowa was in 1984. He was just along for the ride. Jesus Christ. You drove in 17 runs? I was going to look. How many runs did they score that year? How did you think you'd accidentally drive in more than 17?
A bunch of guys with over 90, yeah.
You played every day. You drove in 17 fucking runs on a team that, I'm going to look and see how many they scored here. What I don't like, Baseball Reference used to put under the totals the rank. They don't do that anymore. You could just quickly look. You could find a team and go down and look at runs and see where they ranked. Let's see. Standard batting, runs. 760. They scored 762 runs. And the great Larry Bowa, who played 133 games, drove in 17 of them. All right, I got to look. We're going to look. All right, people can. You could tune out of the pod if you're already tired of this. It's been 2 hours. But I'm going to look at. I want to look at Larry Bowa's 1984 splits. I want to see what did he hit with?
By the way, 17. You said, I don't know if you said 768 or what. 17 RBIs out of 768 is literally 2.2%.
For your starting shortstop who played it almost every day. Now, here's the problem. Why was Fry playing him against righties? This was Larry's slash against lefties that year. 287, 315, 361. He was 8 of his 17 RBIs came in 62 games against lefties. Against righties, 193, 256, 227.
Oh, my God. The comparison I want to see is what the pitchers are hitting.
He was terrible at home and on the road, so that didn't matter. Yeah. He was actually worse in the second half than he was in the first half. He had 204 in the second half. He had 236 in the first half. Must have just narrowly missed the All-Star team.
The more I think about it, the more I can understand why Dunston was, your favorite player. Jesus, like an oasis in the desert. 17 RBIs.
Clutch stats. 2 outs, runners in scoring position. He had 214 with a slug of 214, but an on base of 353. You get 2 on and runners in scoring position, Larry could get you a walk. Get you to the pitcher.
And he did have the.
You know why? Because the pitcher was on deck. That's why That's why he could get a walk. Although you really shouldn't have bothered. I'm sure the pitcher, especially if it was Sutcliffe, was a much bigger threat than Larry was.
And I know. We mentioned this when we did the 1985 season, but he did have a clutch two strike walk off game winning bunt in 1985. 2 strikes, man.
Let's see.
Pressure.
Was there any team that he hit? Let's see. He hit 207 against the Braves, 190 against the Reds. Oh, the Astros, 294, 314, 353.
Yeah, Astros.
176 against the Dodgers, 122 against the Mets, 275 against his old team, the Phillies, 182 against the Pirates.
Yeah.
Let's see. Night games, 219, 265, 260. Hit better during the day, 224, 279, 273. That was all home games.
How did he hit after he got Harry Carey's prescription?
The ball must look like a beach ball. Well, it looks like Larry can't hit a beach ball either. I always like to think I always like to think now that Steve actually said that. It looks like Harry can't hit a beach ball either, Harry. I'm sure he said it during the commercial.
Oh, he would never. Stoney did not have those kind of cojones early in his career. He was very milquetoast, frankly, before he put his big boy pants on.
Did you know he's the uncle? I do. Larry is the uncle of former Yankee first baseman Nick Johnson.
I did not know that. It's wild. Imagine your uncle. Okay.
The thing I've never understood about Larry. Remember when Larry managed the Padres, and he was such a hard ass. Who could take him seriously? He's listed at 5'10", 155, which means he's 5'8", 130 pounds. Who gives a shit if he's mad at you?
I think.
It's like, all right, buddy. Flick.
I genuinely love that we're concluding this podcast by just taking one final dump on Larry Bowa. I think it tracks.
Awful. We couldn't have gotten anybody else, Dallas. That was what you had to get. I mean, it was fine. The trade for how about just Avante Jesus for Ryan Sandberg, and you just go find a shortstop somewhere. Although the Phillies half of it was
that's true.
The half of it was the Phillies going, you have to take Larry. We need to get rid of him.
Yeah, it was almost like, why didn't you just cut him and let Verizon play? Could Tom Verizon been any worse in '84?
Nobody could have been any worse.
Yeah, you'd think so.
Tom Verizon was worse. 189, 259, 203 that year.
Right.
Although it's because of the sporadic playing time. If he'd been able to play more.
Sure. Right.
What about Dave? Excuse me. What about Dave Owen?
Yeah. Well,
194, 269, 290. Oh God! All right, we're gonna have to look this up. What the Cubs shortstops is a total?
He had his game on June 23rd, 1984. But other than that,
yeah, they show it all the time too.
Yeah. Spike's brother.
All right. Cubs shortstops in 1984. This is something. They combined in 5.
Is it going to be like Cubs? Is it going to be like Cubs third baseman in 2025?
529 at bats. Cub third baseman combined to hit 214 with a 260 or shortstops combined to hit 214 with 268 on base, 265 slug, 1 homer, and 30 RBIs.
Not even 520 OPS. Wow.
530,
1 homer. 1 homer.
One homer.
Was it Larry?
It wasn't Larry. Larry hit none.
Maybe it's Dave Owen. A boy can dream. Could have been Verizon.
Dave Owen had a homer.
All right, that was it.
Davey Lopes did not have a homer.
I doubt Davey Lopes played shortstop.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was just looking for anybody who might be Verizon. No homer. It was
Tom Verizon.
It had to be. It
is. Yeah, it is. Verizon had no homers. He had 4 RBIs.
What about Dan Roan?
Stupid.
No, not Dan Roan.
Nah, he had, but not a shortstop.
Oh, he did. He did hit a homer.
But I didn't mean he did, but he wasn't a shortstop.
Oh,
no, right. He hit it when he was. I think I mentioned it before. He was 1 for 10 before the homer. He was batting 100. But yeah, Tom Verizon, his 78 Tops flip up sunglasses, and he was with the Tigers. Didn't do shit either.
Let's see, Dan.
But he couldn't have been that much worse than Bowa.
All right, it's got to be Dave. I'm just gonna. I'm gonna confirm here that it was Dave Owen because I think it has to be. Yeah.
Okay, you can see that. Why in some respects Dallas Green rushed Sean Dunston, but he also at the same time could have maybe worked a little bit harder.
Yeah, he could have actually gone out and gotten a guy for a year and let his prospect.
But again,
it was fine. I mean, it didn't. When Sean came back, after
made it clear that good hitting shortstops are rare. Yeah, you said he batted 287 or something.
Yeah. So he didn't ruin him, but it fucked up. It contributed to fucking up the season because they had to go back to Larry because Bowa had to play shortstop.
Right, because Larry was still there. Yeah, and then it was 39.
Dave Owen as shortstop.
Yep. He had a homer in 84. I guarantee he was a shortstop.
It has to be a run out of guys. Where's the... Yep, 1 homer, 9 RBIs. Good for Dave. If it wasn't for him. I don't know the Cubs second baseman can hit a home run this year. I don't think Nico's got one in him.
Well, third baseman I thought was the...
Well, it's both. Right. They haven't done it either.
Yeah.
But Shaw will hit one.
Oh, that's right. Either position.
Shaw will hit one at some point. He's already hit one, but that was as a pinch hit.
Remarkable. Just remarkable. By the way, Dave Owens' 1 home run off of Bill Lasky.
Oh, I see.
Remember Bill Lasky? He was rumored to be traded to the Cubs around that time. So
maybe is that what squelched the trade? Dallas is like, gee, he just gave up a fucking home run to Dave Owen.
Dallas was no dummy.
Oh, it came early in the 3rd. Back-to-back jacks with Ron Say.
At 5. Huh?
July 5th, 1984 at Candlestick.
Happy birthday, America, and good for you, Dave Owen.
Say hit 2 off Lasky. Yeah.
So 1 homer. The 84 Cubs. That's my takeaway. The 84 Cubs had 1 homer out of shortstop because Larry Bowa is playing 151 games.
Yikes. All right.
Second base will be fun.
Yep.
Many of us have herpes.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. Got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.